across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I go with pride, that is what Keir Starmer has said, and he is off. And tomorrow, indeed, I will be reporting for the station on Andy Burnham becoming leader of the Labour Party. That will happen tomorrow morning. There are ructions, though, in the Conservative Party. Lord Barwell, Gavin Barwell, former Chief of Staff to Theresa May, well, he has lost the whip from the Parliamentary Party. We'll be talking to him in just a second about that and the politics of the day and what's going on with Kemi Badenoch. There's lots going on with the politics of the day because Sadiq Khan is now a member of the House of Lords, as is June Sarpong, who did a 3-day week at the BBC and got £267,000 a year, equivalent of £1,700 a day, to tell the BBC how to be more diverse. We'll talk a little bit about that and Sadiq Khan as well. Also, the big controversy over the Argentinian players who have been revealing and holding up a sign saying that the Falkland Islands are Argentinian. They're not, of course, and Keir Starmer says he wants a FIFA investigation into that. Prince Harry's attacking judges as well. That's been criticised by former Justice Secretaries, and Pakistan is blaming Britain for the Rochdale rapist crimes. Lots to discuss this evening. I want to make you part of the conversation. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, a WhatsApp voice note, or you can send me, indeed, a WhatsApp text message on 0344 499 1000. That's the number for calls as well. And indeed, Melanie's been in touch and says, let's hope and pray the Spanish hammer Argentina in the final and give them a taste of their own medicine. Interestingly, the Prime Minister today said he wished both teams well in the final, especially Spain. Loads to discuss this evening. Please do get in touch. I'm here right through till 10 o'clock on the Evening Exchange on Talk. Well, Keir Starmer has just done an interview that has dropped with one of the major broadcasters, Sky News. We'll see if there's any major lines out of that and bring them to you. We have also heard today that he said he wouldn't have a resignation honours list when it came to and elevate people to the House of Lords, but he's U-turned on that again, another U-turn, and he has made 26 new peers, mostly Labour peers, one of whom is Sir Sadiq Khan, who becomes Lord Khan. Keir Starmer at least has done some interviews valedictorially, but of course his successor Andy Burnham is saying very, very little, but he has dropped this major line today about how he takes his tea. I think we can all be very grateful to him for doing so. Let's see how Andy Burnham takes his tea.
Yeah, all that. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that it softens the tea bag a bit and makes it stronger. Might be wrong. I know that will offend a lot of people, but there'll be no legislation to ban.
He puts the milk in first. I, for one, I'm very grateful that we know that. Sadiq Khan has become a member of the House of Lords. He is, of course, Mayor of London, and he is now Lord Khan. When he was knighted and became Sir Sadiq, this was what he said at Buckingham Palace.
It's a pinch me moment. It's just a huge honour to have His Majesty the King bestow me with this honour, and my mum's here. And she's been emotional since it was announced on January the 1st, and today's just a great day for the family, really. Well, I've got the pleasure of working closely with the King. We were just comparing who's the bigger workaholic. He was very chuffed that he'd managed to personally give me this honour, and he actually apologised for it taking so long, which is not a problem at all. Obviously, from my background being the son of immigrants, my parents coming here from Pakistan, it's a big deal for us. But also it's a recognition of, I think, the way in which public service can be recognised, and I'm really grateful.
Well, that's very humble, I'm sure we can all agree, from Sir Sadiq, now Lord Khan. The other clip I want to play you is from Peter Kyle, the Business Secretary, talking about the Falklands game, the Falklands controversy over the Argentinian game. He spoke to our stablemates Times Radio this morning.
Boy, did I support this team, and boy, am I proud of this team. When it comes to the Argentinians, I think the dignity with which our team acted, I think, is the perfect contrast, and really shows them for their own behaviour by contrast. And when it comes to the rest of it, FIFA need to really take the action that deserves to happen.
we'll see what happens there. I want to ask Lord Barwell just about that controversy in regard to the Argentinian team. We've got him on, though, to talk mainly about what's going on in the Conservative Party, because he has been a real stalwart of the Conservative Party. He's been a minister, he's been housing minister, he's been chief of staff to Theresa May. She put him in the House of Lords, and now he's had the whip removed. So he's still a member of the Conservative Party, but he is not in the Conservative Parliamentary Party, and that's a sort of disciplinary measure that is taken. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, has said that she doesn't want people in her party who are pro-net zero or against withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights. Let's speak to Lord Barwell, Gavin Barwell now, former number 10 Chief of Staff. Gavin, thanks for joining us this evening. How are you doing?
Pleasure, not too bad, thank you.
Tell me what's happened.
Yeah,
tell me what's happened here.
It's quite difficult to answer that, Peter, because nobody's spoken to me and I haven't received any communication, so I can't tell you with any certainty. All I can judge it by is the briefing that was in the newspapers, which suggests that Kemi was unhappy with some of the things I'd posted on social media. But
so you actually found out from someone sending you an article in the Daily Mail. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a reasonable way to treat, well, really anybody, but particularly someone who's a member of the House of Lords, former minister, former chief of staff at number 10. I mean, it doesn't seem a nice way to treat people.
I don't think it really matters how, what jobs you've had in the past. I think generally, if you're going to remove the whip from someone, you would expect a warning in advance, maybe, that your behaviour was causing a problem. Never had that. And then when the decision's actually made, you'd expect someone to communicate it to you. Didn't have that either. But yeah, I think I look back through what I posted on X for the previous month, and there was only one tweet that was critical of Kemi, which was over this issue that you just mentioned, her saying that she's not going to allow anybody that believes in net zero to stand as a Conservative candidate next time. But there were several that were positive about other things she was doing. So it does seem a bit thin-skinned for one tweet to essentially have provoked this. But there we are.
Why do you think she seems to see you anyway as a thorn in her side?
Well, I've criticised a few of the things that she's done over the time, but that criticism is constructive. I'm not trying to undermine her. I'm not trying to have somebody replace her as leader of the Conservative Party. I want her to succeed. And I don't think her strategy is quite right. I think, Peter, any fair-minded person, whatever your politics, would say she does a good job in the House of Commons of holding the government to account. And you can see from her personal ratings, they've improved a lot. But the Conservative Party's opinion poll ratings haven't improved. And if you look at the results they got on 7th of May, they were still pretty bad. So that tells you there's something not quite right with the strategy. So what I try to do is, where I think she's getting it right, I'm supportive, and where I think it's not quite right, I try and give some advice. It's not meant with any malice or any desire, as I said, to undermine. So I suppose there's kind of two things to me that this story indicates, which is much more important than what my own personal position, which I guess most people couldn't give two hoots about, which is one, whether a party leader insisting that everybody that stands as a candidate has to agree with them on these questions is the right way to go, because it's not something that Margaret Thatcher or John Major or William Hague or Ian
Boris Johnson did it, and he got an 80-strong majority saying you've got to sign up to my Brexit plan, and that was something that you struggled with under Theresa May, I remember, because I was there, to have that party discipline. So Kemi Badenoch is probably looking back at those lessons thinking, sorry, I'm not going to take lectures from you, Gavin. I'm going to try and have these two very serious planks of policy, net zero, which she agrees with, although, of course, the Conservatives introduced, and the European Convention on Human Rights. And if you fall foul of those, she doesn't want you around her.
So I suppose there's two things I'd say to that. And one, on the Brexit issue, there was although I didn't like it, you could at least see why Boris had done it, because we'd had 2 years of Parliament being unable to make a decision. So at least kind of see the rationale for that. But the second thing is, that decision that he made had really bad long-term consequences for the Conservative Party, because he purged out a lot of the more competent ministers that he had in his government as a result of that. And then when the pandemic came along, in terms of the quality of the government response, it suffered as a result of those people not being there. But if you take the net zero example, which was the one that I talked about in the tweet, it's a really curious one, because if you actually look at the polling, most Conservative voters agree with net zero by 2050. So actually, Kemi is out of touch, not certainly out of touch with overall public opinion, but she's even out of touch with the views of most Conservative voters.
But perhaps they're going to vote for her anyway. Perhaps they're going to vote for her anyway, and perhaps she wants to look at those in Reform UK, for example, who may be her target voters. What sort of level of private support have you had from your colleagues in the Lords and indeed the Commons as well?
So I've had a lot of messages from people who are both colleagues in the Conservative Party and members of the party around the country, and people that are not Conservatives and just find it a very strange way to behave. We've not had this historically in our politics, I think, in any party really, that people that just disagree with the leader's strategy get the whip removed from them. But as I said, I'm less bothered about my position. It's not, if you're an MP and you lose the whip, that's potentially career ending. It makes absolutely no difference to me. It's not going to stop me saying what I think. So I think the issue is more what it says, both on policy about where she is, in terms of not allowing the party to be a broad church, which I think historically has been a huge strength of it, and a sort of very thin-skinned attitude to criticism. And I don't think that is going to serve her well going forward.
Speaking of party leaders, what about Ed Davey's offer to Conservatives who may feel as you do to join the Lib Dems? There perhaps isn't much of a future as things stand for the One Nation Conservatives on the sort of sunshine, lollipops and rainbows wing of the Conservative Party.
Well, I'm not a Liberal Democrat. I'm a Conservative. I've been a Conservative all my life. I started off as a teenager, as an activist. I've served as a local councillor for 12 years, an MP, a minister, Downing Street Chief of Staff, the party's Chief Operating Officer. My views haven't changed from the point at which I joined the party. What's changed is the party's position. And so, no disrespect to Ed Davey or the Liberal Democrats, but those are not my views. They never have been. And so I'm not going to change my position.
I know you're a sports fan, Gavin. I just wonder how you think Number 10 has handled this controversy over the Argentinian players holding up the sign to say that Las Malvinas, as they call them inaccurately, the Falkland Islands, are Argentinian. Do you think Keir Starmer's done the right thing?
Yeah, I think he's been properly robust about it, which is what we should be. Ultimately, the issue here is that the people of the Falkland Islands want to stay British, and that's the end of the issue, effectively. And I think it was very poor form from the Argentinian players to do that, and I hope FIFA will take action, because if you don't take action about this, then what's going to happen is every country will use these kind of platforms to make political statements, and that's not what the World Cup should be about.
And when it comes to Sadiq Khan, will you welcome him to the House of Lords?
I don't agree with Sadiq's politics, but I think he's had a long career in public service, both as a minister, an MP, and Mayor of London, and it's entirely right. If Keir Starmer wants to recognise that and put him in the Lords, it's entirely right. I'm sure he can make an important contribution to the debates there, not one that I will necessarily always agree with, but it's as he was saying in your interview there, given his background, it's a powerful story of the kind of country we are. What
sort of Prime Minister will Andy Burnham be, in your view? Because he seems to me to be one of the least scrutinised people in public life, never mind politics. We don't know very much about what he'll do, apart from put milk in first in his tea, a little bit about Gaza, a little bit about economics, but there's so many questions still when you think, for example, even when your old boss, Theresa May, went through that leadership contest, which eventually she won by default, essentially. She still had many questions, did many interviews, was asked lots and lots of questions about her policies. That hasn't been the level of scrutiny that Andy Burnham has. Yeah, I think you make a really good point. The last time I can remember someone becoming Prime Minister without either a general election where you get a huge amount of scrutiny and big manifesto, or at least a party leadership contest where, as you said, you get 5 or 6 weeks of media interviews and hustings and the like, was Gordon Brown, the last person that didn't have either of those processes. So there's lots of things that we don't know at the moment and how Andy Burnham's going to handle them. I think there's one thing that we know really well, which is he gave this big speech in Manchester, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, and clearly his big idea is about trying to devolve power in England from Westminster and Whitehall around the country. And actually, I think that's an interesting idea. The concerns I would have on some of his kind of wider economic policy ideas. But I think he is right to say that this is a very centralised country, and actually trying to disperse power a bit more around the country could help with trying to get growth going in some of the parts of the country that haven't been so strongly grown. I've worked just for a little short while with him in Greater Manchester because I chair he appointed me to chair one of the kind of regeneration projects there. So
Certainly in that kind of housing regeneration space, that's somewhere where he has real expertise in that kind of local growth space. I think, as you say, there's lots of other areas of policy where it's much less clear what the direction is going to be.
Yeah. And just finally, you were the chief spad, the top spad in Theresa May's number 10. We have announcements today that someone from Hope Not Hate, and indeed someone who ran Jacinda Ardern's office in New Zealand, are going to be special advisors to Andy Burnham. Does that raise any concerns from you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that I haven't seen that, and I don't know the names of the individuals, so I'm not that well placed to comment on that. But the one thing I would say positively is I think James Purnell is a really good choice to be chief of staff. You know, if you think about Keir Starmer's government, I think you probably would agree that the number 10 operation was pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And he started with Sue Gray as an official that we would have both worked with, but she had no political background at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to Morgan McSweeney, who's a highly skilled political campaigner but had no government experience whatsoever. And I think James Purnell has got that combination of political and government experience that you need to be the chief of staff. And I think also he's got a very long-standing relationship with Andy Burnham. And what you'll know from having worked in government previously, what you really need in that role is the ability to tell truth to power, that in private, if the Prime Minister's getting something wrong, that you're able to say, look, you shouldn't be doing that.
And also to know to other people how your principal is likely to react and how they're what they're likely to think. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know all the other SPAD appointments, but that one strikes me as a good fit.
Gavin, thank you. That's Gavin Barwell there, former number 10 Chief of Staff, Lord Barwell. I appreciate him joining us on the programme this evening. John says, try asking these net zero supporters what net zero means. 90% can't define it. I'd love to see the evidence. Stephen says that Barwell, that most Conservatives back net zero. That's Stephen Bromsgrove. Penny in Essex says, good evening, Peter. I knew that Argentina would win, but to make it political by unfurling that banner saying the Falklands belong to Argentina show they have no idea of history. That is disgraceful. They need to be reprimanded in some way. No, it doesn't belong to them. And to add insult to injury, the Scots also celebrated our loss. No sportsmanship or support, and totally shameful, says Penny. Dawn in Chelmsford says, it always surprises me that Gavin Barwell is actually a Conservative. Kemi obviously wants to ensure that her party has real Conservatives. Gavin's loss of the whip is a good move in his view. Mike in Lincoln says, let's face it, if the Tories are to start recovering any voters before the election after next, or possibly one after, getting rid of the likes of Gavin Barwell is just the start of the cull Badenoch needs to undertake. He's a Lib Dem at heart. The One Nation caucus, along with the Boris wave, are the main reasons they are unlikely to recover in the distant, let alone near future, says Mike in Lincoln. And Steve says, what position is Lord Can likely to get in Burnham's government? That's a very good point, actually, because Lord Can could then become eligible for a ministerial appointment. He is a former minister. I think he's a former transport minister, if I remember correctly, back in the day. We're going to go to the debate desk next. Leo Watson, the political commentator, and James Hodgkinson from the Adam Smith Institute will join us. I want to know your opinions too, of course. 0344 499 1000. Give me a ring. Let me know. We'll get you on the air. Stay with us.
Here at Talk, we're giving you the chance to win a massive £26,000.
The question is, what would you do with all that money?
I don't know. We've got a wedding.
I would buy a camper van.
Probably just like clothes, yeah.
Go on a big holiday. Immigrate.
So if you fancy getting your hands on £26,000 tax-free, here's all the details you need to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
I've thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Finface apparently is now 5-1.
Brilliant.
You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Finface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thanks to everybody who has been in touch, including Becca, who says, I weirdly agree with Pakistan. It is our fault for the rape gangs. The UK covered up on all levels for fear of being racist. If it was their country, they'd have death. In our country, they serve bugger all time and go back. If it was in their country, they'd have death. In our country, they serve bugger all time and go back to the same community. Amanda says those Argentine footballers who play in English teams better be prepared for a hostile reception from fans. Their behaviour at the World Cup was an utter disgrace. Believe me, Amanda, we will be discussing that on the debate desk in a second. Keir Starmer has given an interview to Sky News. He says he leaves office with pride, big pride in everything I've achieved. He also says, I believe Ukraine will win this war, and says Ukraine is now the most effective fighting machine in Europe. He also said he had made the decision to end his political career after spending time with his family the weekend before he announced it, and spoke about trying to balance family life, whilst in number 10 saying, I tried to make time for them. He also talked about his legacy, how he should be remembered as the person that saved the Labour Party, turned it into a party that could face the public again. And contradicting what Morgan McSweeney said in a BBC podcast, that's his former chief of staff, that Labour was not prepared for office. The Prime Minister's insisted he did enough to prepare for office, so he disagrees with Morgan McSweeney. On Gavin Barwell, who we just heard from there, Lord Barwell, the Red Ranger on Twitter says he is not a Conservative, he is a Lib Dem squatter. And on the football again, Elisa says, I do not want Spain to win. It's one of the most Jew-hating nations on the planet. Lots to talk about in the debate desk. I'm delighted that Leo Watson is back with us, political commentator. Hi, Leo.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Good to see you. And James Hodgkinson, Research Associate at the Adam Smith Institute. Lovely to see you.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Let's have a little look and a reminder what the Business Secretary, Peter Kyle, said about the Argentinian controversy. Not only was England winning until the 85th minute last night, they then conceded 2 goals, meaning that Argentina are through to the Sunday final. But then, to add insult to injury, a number of the Argentinian footballers held up a sign claiming that the Falkland Islands are Argentinian. They're not, of course, they're British. This was the reaction of the Business Secretary speaking to Times Radio this morning.
Boy, did I support this team, and boy, am I proud of this team. When it comes to the Argentinians, I think the dignity with which our team acted, I think, is the perfect contrast, and really shows you know, them for their own behaviour by contrast. And when it comes to the rest of it, FIFA need to really take the action that deserves to happen.
Leo, what do you make of this controversy?
I mean, it's entirely predictable. I mean, the Argentinian position has been what it's been for a long period of time, but it's entirely disgraceful on the same level. Yeah, but it's what I come to expect of that nation and those people.
Why? Why would you come to expect it from them?
I mean, they've been trying to take back the Falklands for a long period of time. They are a hostile nation. They have invaded the Falkland Islands. They've never forgiven us for winning that war and trouncing them in that war in such a period of time. And that is the attitude of the Argentinian football team. They're hostile. They're in your face. They step over lines. It's never the way we've played. And I'm proud of our boys like Peter Kyle is, and I think the nation can be.
James?
Yeah, well, Peter Kyle got it dead right when he said dignity, because if the game had gone the other way, if we'd have won and we'd have held up a similar sign saying the Falklands is British, we would have been criticised for that, and rightly so. Because in my view, any attempt to use this conflict for football minimises its significance majorly. 255 British soldiers died in that conflict, and 3 Falkland Islanders died as well. And they died for the principle that a territory should be able to determine of its own accord who it wants to be ruled by. And that's something we tested in 2013 when 99.8% of the population of the Falkland Islands said, yes, we want to be British. And at the end of the day, FIFA claims to be apolitical. What I want to see now is quick action from FIFA. I'd quite like to see some sanctions put in place against the Argentinian Football Association, because politics of this sort has no place in football.
What sort of sanctions do you think would be the right sanctions? Because there'll be a lot of people who say, why, don't put politics into football, but maybe the Argentinians have stepped over that line already and deserve what they get.
Well, look, whether the FIFA choose to fine the Argentinian Football Association, I think if they did, they'd be within their rights to. Whether they look to suspend players, I'm not sure that's perhaps the answer.
Hit them where it hurts. Ban the fans. Ban the fans for a number of years. Make them play behind closed doors. That's the only way it's going to stop.
I've just been doing a back-of-the-envelope calculation on the population of the Falkland Islands now. The full population seems to be between 3,400 and 3,600, so it's not many people. It's not much larger than the village I come from. And if everyone had a vote, and of course children don't, but if everyone had a vote in that referendum, you're looking at around 6 or 7 people who actually voted against in the 99.8% that James was talking about there.
Votes against in that referendum were 3.
Yeah. Right, 3 was it?
So, pretty emphatic.
Certainly wasn't very many anyway. I wonder what you think FIFA should do. Certainly, Number 10 has been clear that they feel there should be some action taken here between now and Sunday, perhaps, or after that.
There's nothing you can do between now and Sunday, and the people calling for Argentina to be banned from the finals for the birds, again, I think that drags us down to the bottom. They won fair and square.
They won fair and square.
We didn't rock up, so what happens. Ban the fans. That's what hurt them the most. That's what's going to make them stop. Play behind those closed doors and put those banners out to absolutely nobody, and enjoy a much tougher route to the next World Cup.
What do you make of the politicisation of football more generally? James, we have a message from John saying England brought football into politics by taking the knee for BLM. Why weren't they punished for that? I think I would argue in around 2020, 2021, who was a more effective opposition figure? Was it Marcus Rashford or was it Keir Starmer? Marcus Rashford got a very significant U-turn on when it came to free school meals and for children and breakfast. So I would argue he was actually much more successful than Keir Starmer. When it comes to football and sport in general, we see this with celebrities as well. There are all sorts of people who have their political opinions out there. Do you think they should be independent figures or representing the nation, or should they be entitled to and put out their political opinions?
Well, I'm a firm advocate for free speech, and in my view there is a line between professionals using their profile in whatever sphere to advocate for issues they care about. I think Marcus Rashford, for example, was within his rights to do what he did. But what I'm talking about here is a very specific issue, an international tournament where there are rules and guardrails in place. I'd just also like to say, because I wasn't overly impressed with some of the politicisation that happened on our side as well. You had Farage came out and said before the game on social media, let's do it like we did in 1982. That is not helpful as well. We need to clean up our act on this and remember the Falklands conflict for what it was, which was a brutal war that led to the death of British soldiers, Argentinians and civilians.
Final thought from Leo on this?
I agree entirely with James, but I think politics is life, it's in absolutely every single thing that we do, which is why I love it, which is why I think we all give so much time to it. Yeah. And football, for many people, is life also. The two things are inextricably linked. Ultimately, I think the fans will have their say. With Rashford, he's not commenting on political issues anymore. So I think ultimately the people of Britain just didn't like it. So if they want to do that, if they want to get involved in politics, they can. We'll have our say or governing bodies will have their say with bans, and it will sort itself out.
One from Phil in Portsmouth who says, let's face it, none of those Argentinian players were even alive in 1982. They're all subject to their own political propaganda and they're more interested in earning thousands of pounds a week for running around a field, says Phil. I do agree with you, Phil, but also I sometimes think people say, well, why do people have opinions on this? It's nothing to do with them. I've never been to Iraq, but I have opinions on Iraq. And I know there are things that happened before I was born that I have opinions on. And I'm kind of with you, Phil, but I would just add that perhaps context to it. Graham in Bushy says, as we are meant to have a special relationship with America, maybe Starmer can have a chat with Trump so he can have a word with his best buddy Gianni Infantino to disqualify Argentina and replace them with England, says Graham. I think his tongue is in his cheek in that one. And Cliff in Berkshire says, Gavin Barwell stated that most members of the Conservative Party are pro-net zero. He may be right because as most true Conservatives left joined reform. I'm sure that as youngsters are brainwashed into into this new false religion of climate change and my generation die off, so support for the agenda will grow. Most sensible older people know it's a scam designed to redistribute wealth, says Cliff in Berkshire. I must say, Cliff, I think there's something in that, and I am not a climate skeptic. I believe climate change is a thing. I think it's man-made. I think there is evidence to suggest that. I know that's not the view of every presenter on this station, but the point is, I think net zero is fundamentally changing the economy. The idea that you fundamentally change your economy simply for an issue on which you are responsible for 1% of the emissions, when unless America, India, China are on board with it properly, things just won't change. That's my view anyway. Cliff, thank you for that, and we'll come back to the debate desk with James and indeed with Leo in just a moment here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two very interesting stories when it comes to welfare. One from Citizens Advice, which are a very good organisation, but I'm not sure I agree with their policy of telling people to claim sickness benefits to help pay bills. That is what Citizens Advice has told some families. A story in the Telegraph about that, story in the Times as well, about young people on benefits now less likely to get jobs than over 55. James Hodgkinson has been looking into the detail of all of this as a think tanker with a big brain. Tell us about this and tell us your opinion, then we'll go to Leo.
Yeah, so look, it's concerning when you get stories like this, but I think it's really indicative of the general malaise that we're seeing in the economy now, specifically around young people. I like to tie these things back to the Milburn report, which said that 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds, which is around about 1 in 8, are NEET, not in employment, education or training, including 15% of those people who went to university. The problem has got worse since 2024, and we have to be honest about that. There's 100,000 more 16 to 24-year-olds unemployed now than there was in 2024, and the 1 million NEET threshold was crossed for the first time. In my view, government policy hasn't helped. We've seen it become much more expensive for companies to hire young people. The minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds, for example, has gone up by 26%. And in total, when you throw in national insurance to that, it now costs £4,000 more per year to hire someone of my age on the minimum wage. Where I sit on this is that work is good, and that has to be the fundamental foundation that we lie on. What I want to see is, of course, everyone be able to access some sort of work, because in my view that is how you keep people off welfare. The way we do that is we create an economy and we deregulate to a point where that work is abundant. And honestly, what I've seen over the last 6 months is so many of my friends who have been working minimum wage jobs, because I, up until very recently, have worked a minimum wage job as well. They've seen their hours cut because companies can't afford to hire them anymore. And if I have to take an 85% pay cut on £10 an hour, I'm quite happy to do that if it means the person sat next to me on the bus can have a job, and that's the debate we're talking about here.
Leo, what do you make of what James has said there?
Well, I mean, I agree with James in many, many ways, but it comes down to this: businesses aren't paying people enough. 40% of people who are on universal credit are in work. So we can't just bleat on about every time. You do say this every time, James. It's an argument with the right every single time. Well, businesses are being hit so hard. Businesses aren't paying people properly. They're in work. They can't afford to live. They're calling Citizens Advice. asking for help, and citizens advice saying, well, maybe look at disability benefits because that's what you need to do to put food on your table, to heat your home. This country is fundamentally bankrupt. It's bankrupt morally on the back of capitalism and the way capitalism currently works, because businesses are not willing to pay a decent wage for decent jobs. Simple as that.
So who do you blame when you have that? You're blaming the businesses rather than the level of regulation that's there. I mean, if you're making it more expensive to take someone on, even on the minimum wage, which the government has decided this is the level of wage that you can give someone. It's not as if there are a load of businesses saying we want to pay people £2 an hour. I mean, they have the minimum wage, they have the living wage, it's there.
They would if they could, but the legislature said that they cannot. And that's why Labour made that sweeping change. It changed everybody's lives in 1997.
Well, that's fine. But why are you then blaming businesses who are doing what the government's told them and paying them the legal minimum wage?
Businesses are protecting their margins. They're not. It's not about survival for most businesses who are doing this. They want their margins to remain. Their boards and their shareholders are demanding the percentage of margin. It is true. That's why they're letting people go, not because they're going to go bust.
Look at hospitality.
You know this. You know this to be true.
Eight hospitality businesses close every single day. It now costs 60. It costs 60% more to run a pub than it did in 2020. Okay, the margins are a lot smaller. We're not just talking about evil capitalists sitting in large buildings and having huge dividends. There are real businesses, small businesses that cannot exist because of the level of regulation that Conservative and Labour governments have put on them.
I agree with you when it comes to hospitality, and I think there should be carve-outs. I don't think there should be a blanket one-size-fits-all approach to this, and hospitality and pubs absolutely need a different game. But also, I think this article is doing in the Telegraph is saying, look at those disability benefits cheats. Look at them. Look at how they're scrounging. Look at how they're all fraudulent and fake. Do you know how many? You know the percentage of fraudulent claims?
It's very small. It's very small.
It's currently 1.4%. That means 98.6% of the disability benefit claims are legitimate. This article is basically written to stoke up hate for something that just simply doesn't exist. There is fundamental problems with our society, and it's not about how many people are claiming.
But there is a debate. I hope you would agree, and we'll bring in James again in a second. But there is a debate. You can say there may be legitimate claims for disability benefits. There are times when people are on disability benefits for things they may feel they should be on benefits for, but actually, isn't there a wider debate about whether, for example, levels of autism, ADHD, for example, should actually engender and allow disability benefits?
There is a debate, and I understand that debate, and I'm not, my ears aren't close to that.
It's not calling people benefits cheats.
That's what this article's trying to
do. Should they get it? Well, I mean, I want
to say, Peter, quite clearly, I've worked for disability benefits charities. I've sat with people trying to claim who are absolutely desperate, who are absolutely at their wits' end, people with Parkinson's who are being told their progressive condition has got better so they can go back to work, when actually that is scientifically impossible. The people on the front line, when you see it, when you sit in their homes and you talk about their family situation, I think and a lot of people in this room would change their minds if they saw it live.
James?
Look, a lot of what people on the right do is to vilify individuals. That is not where I sit. These people respond to the incentive structure that is in front of them. What I want to see is a fundamental overhaul of the system that does two things. One, allows there to be 30, 40, 50 years in the future some form of welfare that protects the most vulnerable, because that is vital to living in a civilised society, and that can't be squandered. But I also want to see young people specifically not just being put onto welfare and left there to languish.
I've got an idea about this. National service. I mean, you might laugh me out of the room. I'm a big believer. Civilian national service.
Rishi Sunak's the man for you.
I wouldn't do military unless it was for James, in which case he can pop off. I would do civilian on a very serious note. Civilian national service.
The Germans do it.
The Germans do it. The French do it. The Americans do it. Bill Clinton created it in America. It's something where you can go and serve in your society, whether it be in hospitals, schools, museums, on the land. You can socially integrate with people from backgrounds you might never have met before. And in doing so, you can get things like debt cancellation on tuition fees. So here, give a year, get it. Or give you £9,000 back on your tuition fees if you've served your country. I think initiatives like that, which help people get ready for work, help people socially integrate, which I think is the biggest challenge of our society, would be an absolute game changer. I'd love to see all parties fall in behind it.
James, you're 18 years old. Would you be happily doing some... you took a gap year.
Good luck,
so you didn't go to explore yourself and Asia, but you instead been working for the Adam Smith Institute. I mean, is that your service to the nation?
Well, look, I think Leo raises a really, really good point, actually, that specifically for young people, if you've got a young person who can't find an opportunity, it would be really nice if, in exchange for whatever welfare they might need, they have to go and do something like this. Because we are in a situation where my generation, I feel, has failed systemically, not just by the government, but by the general situation they find themselves in, and that includes education, which I really don't think equips people with the skills they need to go forwards. And any scheme like that, which is serious, credible, and well thought out, is something that should be considered.
Do you blame the Citizens Advice Bureaus, as they used to be called, Citizens Advice, to instruct or to help people claim sickness benefits to help pay bills? Do you blame them as an organisation?
Well, ultimately, the only people claiming PIP should be those with disabilities. Anyone who advises people to do that when they're not claiming disability, when they haven't got a disability, is, in my view, immoral. But at the end of the day, as I've said, the welfare system is so complicated, so convoluted, that there are these loopholes, and it is entirely rational. If I was sat in their position, it's entirely rational for you to want to exploit them.
It is rational, isn't it, to say you could be entitled to this benefit, go and get it.
I completely agree, but whatever advice you get, if you want to go and get PIP, you've got to get assessed. And those assessments are pretty rigorous, and actually, far too rigorous in some cases. If you can't, basically, you have to be able to walk less than 25 metres to be able to get onto this. So it's not as easy as people think. I worked with the providers to try and sort this out.
I'm really not getting at disability claimants at all.
And I know you two aren't. Yeah, I know.
I was in touch with someone today, actually, who's in a really bad situation that I'm trying to help her with a little bit. Who's a caller to this station, actually. But I mean, there is absolutely nothing that I'm being critical of disability benefits claimants at all. If you're entitled to it, that's absolutely fine. That's what we should do as a society. I'm a taxpayer. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. In fact, it actually encourages me that should happen. But the welfare bill in general is out of control, and we need to get it down. Debbie says, I work in the job centre, and trust me, there are a lot more fraudulent claims than figures suggest. There is no fraud department anymore. The benefit system is way too generous. It is ridiculous. And Stephen Andalucia says, how many people on benefits only work 16 hours a week? Because if they worked more, it would affect their benefits. Steve, that is a really, really good point, and that was something that universal credit was meant to fix. Ian Duncan Smith wanted to fix it. I remember my dad, who was a head teacher in school, there were cleaners there who worked 16 hours a week. He said, there's a bit of extra work. There's supervising kids at lunchtime. Would you like an extra couple of hours? And often those people said no, because it would affect their benefits, and universal credit was meant to sort that out. And then, like many problems in this country, it comes back to my central thesis. It doesn't work for defence, but it works for most other things, that there are two people to blame for, or who can be blamed individually for almost everything that's wrong with this country: Tony Blair and George Osborne. In the universal credit example, it was George Osborne. Martin in Norwich says, if we had not let 12 million more people in, wages would be higher and employment would be far lower. So there's a lot in that too. Thank you for that, Martin. I wonder just what you think Annie Burnham will do. We have all the evidence. We're very good politically at diagnosing problems, actually fixing problems. Much more complicated, not taking anything away from that, not criticising Andy Burnham before he started on this issue, but has he got the political will, the political capital, the time and the sort of focus to take this issue on, or will there be other things? Do you think this will go into the too difficult pile one more time?
I think he's very fortunate because he's already, the Milburn review is underway, and I think he's going to give that real teeth. People ultimately, as you see, for everything Andy Burnham's doing, he's in the business of winning elections. Nothing more, nothing less. People won't forgive him if their children cannot get a job. People will not forgive him if they feel like their children cannot get on in life. He knows this is a central issue, and it's a personal issue. Look at what he's done in Greater Manchester as well. So much on education and in that space, even though he had so few powers to get things done. So I absolutely think he's going to put front and centre, and he's going to put it with bells on.
Let me read this out from Jim. He says, evening, Peter, Jim from Exeter. Can someone ask that clown who is crowing about how bad capitalism is what the point of being in business is unless you're there to make money? It's naive to think people deserve a wage when a business can't even afford to employ them. Capitalism is based on voluntary transactions. Leo?
Well, I mean, as I said, you literally were speaking about it, Peter, when you were doing your bit. It's like people aren't getting paid enough. Even when you you're paid and incentivised to be on benefits over work because employers simply aren't paying you enough. We're all agreeing in this room. So clown may I be, but I think clown here, clown there. You know, absolutely.
Stuck in the middle with you, James Hodgkinson. What do you think?
Well, look, ultimately, we are in a position where, in some cases, welfare does pay better than work.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
That is crazy, and that is unambiguous fact.
Employers are big part to blame.
There are two ways that you fix this. You do what Leo would probably do and increase the minimum wage, or you do what I'd probably do and cut welfare. They're the two ways, and I'll leave it to your viewers to arbitrate which of the ones they prefer.
Oh, when you put it like that, you make me look bad.
As long as you're not a clown. Let us know what you think in the break. Leo's going to show us his car that falls apart. Dawn from Chelmsford has been in touch and says 66 million years an asteroid struck Earth. It got very hot. The Earth survived. It always will. Climate change is inevitable. David in the Cotswolds says, what is the difference between the Falklands and the Chagos Islands? Number 10 seems to have double standards, strategically significant, and a British territory. Two-tier standards, one might say, says David in the Cotswolds. And Martin in Norwich says, we should ask the islanders if they want to become a full part of the UK, not just a territory, just like Reunion Island is part of France. See how the RGs like that, says Martin in Norwich. Lots more to come. We'll take a quick look as well at what Keir Starmer has been saying in one of his valedictory interviews. Lots to talk about in the debate desk as well. We'll talk about Prince Harry's attack on the hacking case judge. It's unacceptable, said two former Justice Secretaries. And, of course, the story we're all delighted about, which is Sadiq Khan, now Lord Khan. Jean Sarpong, as well, is a baroness, which I think just tells you everything you need to know about this country. Stay with us here on Talk.
I've thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Finface apparently is now 5-1.
Brilliant.
You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Finface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
We'll take more of your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes in a minute or two. We're on the debate desk, though, with James and Leo. Great to have you with us this Thursday evening. Sadiq Khan is going from Knight to Lord. He is one of the 26 people who's going to be elevated to the House of Lords. One of our producers thought we should let you know the thoughts he had at Buckingham Palace when he became a knight. A very humble address, I think you can argue. Let's hear from then Sir Sadiq, now Lord Khan.
It's a pinch me moment. It's just a huge honour to have His Majesty the King bestow me with this honour. And my mum's here, and she's been emotional since it was announced on January the 1st, and today's just a great day for the family, really. Well, I've got the pleasure of working closely with the King. We were just comparing who's the bigger workaholic. He was very chuffed that he'd managed to personally give me this honour, and he actually apologised for it taking so long, which is not a problem at all. Obviously, from my background being the son of immigrants, my parents coming here from Pakistan is a big deal for us. But also it's a recognition of, I think, the way in which public service can be recognised, and I'm really grateful.
I'm glad he clarified it wasn't a problem that the King hadn't had time to bestow the honour on him. So now he's Lord Khan. What is your reaction, James Hodgkinson?
Well, look, modesty is a wonderful thing, and judging by that video, which I've not seen before, it looks like Lord Khan could do with a healthy dose of that. But more broadly, if we look at the way the House of Lords operates, and as infuriating as it might be for someone on the right of politics to see these new Lords come in, unfortunately it is just how we play the game.
There are some Conservative ones as well, there are some crossbenchers too.
And this is the thing, that the only thing that changes when the government controlling the Commons changes is the ratio of appointees. And when Starmer came into power, there were 275 Tories, roughly, and 170 Labour peers in the Lords. So he had to rebalance this. Now, we could debate all day whether Sadiq Khan is a worthy appointee. As much as I disagree fundamentally on almost everything he stands for politically, as an election winner and as a politician, you have to hand it to him. He's been there since 2016. So, look, it had to be done. Keir Starmer's got to do this. It's part of the game. And really, that's that.
What do you think, Leo?
Yeah, well, first of all, about that poor quote, I mean, he tailed off a bit, didn't he? But 50% I thought was quite beautiful about his family, actually, and that is a really important point. And let's remember, David Beckham had a pop at the royal family for not getting round to his gongs quickly enough.
Yes.
And also, Sadiq Khan, love him or hate him, actually, this isn't about Sadiq Khan. This is about, I think Andy Burnham's had a big hand in this. I think, A, he might want him in his government, but B, he's going to bring all the Metro mayors down to the House of Lords. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an incredibly positive move, because ultimately all the Metro mayors at this moment in time, where's the scrutiny? Yes, they get some scrutiny in the backwater of whatever legislature that they're working in, but that is nowhere near enough. And if we're going to devolve more powers, we absolutely need more scrutiny. So as a part of a wider move, I think it's a really sensible one.
Just to tell you just a breaking line we've just received today in the House of Commons, Sir David Davis has accused Nicola Sturgeon of lying. He used parliamentary privilege to say that she knew full well, in his words, that Peter Murrell was stealing money from the party and using it to fund luxury purchases. The senior Tory MP said that her most evil act was stitching up Alex Salmond to hide the truth about Murrell's crimes. Last month, Murrell was sentenced to 5 years in prison after he admitted embezzling over £400,000. Nicola Sturgeon has accused David Davis of telling lies like a coward behind the legal privilege of Westminster. And just to be clear, this is... I mean, there are some really serious allegations here, actually. He said Salmond was a numerate man who could not be silenced, and the risk he posed to them by uncovering the embezzlement was clear. He said that, Sir David Davis said that Nicola Sturgeon and her fellow conspirators, in his view, moved against Salmond when he considered joining the SNP's ruling National Executive Committee, fearing he would reveal Murrell's crimes. I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. There was a malicious and concerted attempt to remove him from public life with sexual misconduct allegations, according to Sir David Davis. Salmond himself faced multiple allegations of sexual misconduct, but was acquitted on all charges in 2020. Sir David alleged, "I know it appears clear that these actions to destroy a man's reputation and life were motivated by a desire to hide their own crimes." And he claimed the alleged cover-up had cost Alex Salmond his life. Alex Salmond died of a heart attack in 2024. That is a pretty extraordinary development. We'll not comment too much on it, because parliamentary privilege is what Sir David Davis has used. We have given him a ring to see if he'll come on the programme this evening to find out, and we'll also see if we can get that clip of exactly what he said from Parliament. Speaking of clips, here's one of Keir Starmer. He's given an interview to Sky News this evening. Let's see a little bit of that.
Sort of almost had to put your own ego aside a bit in that moment.
I think it was very... I've always said country first, and I've always meant country first, and that means, in the end, I felt I had to take the decision what was in the best interest of the country. And I don't... and I do that with good grace, because that is what I've lived by, that is the right thing to do. But it is also, Beth, something intensely personal in the end, because it is a decision to end your political career, and I just needed the space to really think that through. And there's been a lot of noise around me, a lot of people having a lot of conversations.
It must have been intense.
I needed just to be on my own with Vic in particular, our kids as well. And they were the only people I was with that weekend. I didn't speak to anybody else pretty much that weekend.
I know, I was trying to phone everyone and no one had spoken to you.
And in the end it came down to me and my family.
Did he have any option? I mean, he's talking about his family and having a big think and all the rest of it. But did he actually have any option, Leo?
No, the PLP had decided. I mean, it's a nice story, and I don't begrudge him a nice story. I do take umbrage with people saying, and Sir Keir this week saying it's the end of my political career. He's still an MP.
Yeah.
He's still, and I think
3 years. Let's hope.
Yeah. Indeed, and I think prime ministers who go to the backbenches have an enormous political role to play, an enormous advisory role to play. That's why I was always against the prime ministers like David Cameron who just walked away. Actually,
and Tony Blair.
Yeah, indeed. You owe your country a service, and we need your support. So I hope he's not planning to swan off.
I don't think Andy Burnham would be too happy with that if there was a by-election. But yeah, you look at Theresa May, for example. Yeah. She was stayed another term and a bit. Rishi Sunak's still there.
Impressive.
He's still there. He's still there.
And no one expected that. But I also think I would actually give Keir Starmer Foreign Secretary. I think if he wants to secure his legacy, if he wants to serve his country, if he wants to be the patriot that he says he is, I think if I was Andy, I would reach out to him. I'm not sure Andy will, but also I think he's being quite petty at the moment. I don't think he'd accept it, even though it is in the best interest in the nation. I think there's no better person for that job than Sir Keir to go out and do it.
Do you agree?
Well, look, I think what needs to be said is that Keir Starmer was a really, really competent leader of the opposition, and I've watched a lot of clips in the last couple of days of him as leader of the opposition, especially during COVID. And you cannot deny he was incredibly effective at holding what was a failing Conservative administration to account. But as a young person, I sit here with a degree of anger towards him. I've spoken today about youth unemployment, and in my view, that is down to, at least in part down to, the policies his government pursued. But overall, my view on him is this. He is a decent man. His heart, I think, was in the right place, but sadly, he was just inept.
OK. And just as a final thought, Prince Harry attacking a judge on the hacking case. He's done this previously. There are now 2 former Justice Secretaries, Alex Chalk and Sir Robert Buckland, who have talked about this. What's your view on it, James Hodgkinson?
Well, look, I think with Harry, I always feel an immense amount of sadness at how everything has played out. It must be absolutely awful on a human level to have that poor relations with your family, especially when it's so public as it is in this case. With regards to the press, you've got to be careful because in 2007, 2 journalists were jailed for hacking into his phone. In 2023, he won a civil case against the Mirror where 15 out of the 33 articles were found to be obtained from phone hacking. But in this case, he has gambled and lost, and now he's simply going after the referee, and that's not how we do things in the legal system in this country, and I hope he feels ashamed.
I think he's been in America too long, hasn't he? I mean, criticising judges, I think he's the lowest of the low. I said it when Farage did it, I said it when Boris Johnson did it, I'll say it when Prince Harry does it. And what do those people all have in common? They're on the right of politics, so let's get those people out.
To people who certainly aren't enemies of the people, Leo Watson and James Hodgkinson. In fact, you're certainly not an enemy of Elisa in Chancery. She says, James's wisdom at a young age of 18 blows my mind. So there we are. That's from Elisa.
It upsets me deeply.
You're fine. You were the future once. Fans keep coming in. So one's a clown, one's a genius. Carl in Richmond says, Lord Can, why, and the other 25 mainly Labour. This now means any new laws have a potentially easier path through the Lords. It is madness. And Susie says the only way to sensibly get the welfare bill down is by limiting it to people with actual disabilities. Having piles and acne isn't a disability. Cutting the amount that people with disabilities get is not a realistic or reasonable solution, says Susie. So thank you for that. We're going to talk in just a second about the big issue of the day when it comes to the Falklands. Colonel James Sunderland, who served in the Falklands, and Edmund Fitton Brown, former ambassador to Yemen, will talk about that one. Love your thoughts too. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The disgraceful actions of the Argentinian players are what we're going to talk about in just a second, with a veteran who has served in the Falklands a couple of times, Colonel James Sunderland, and also the former ambassador to Yemen, Edmund Fitton-Brown. Absolutely disgraceful what they did with that banner. We'll talk about that in just a second. We'll also talk about Prince Harry's attack on the hacking case judge. It's unacceptable, say two former Justice Secretaries. We'll speak to someone who gave evidence in that case. We'll also talk about Andy Burnham's plan to revive HS2. Bound to backfire, says our guest a little bit later on. Loads to discuss. I'd love to discuss it with you. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter, or at Cardwell Peter on Instagram if you want to follow me there. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all using the same number, 0344 499 1000. Bit of breaking news as well, because the US has launched fresh strikes on Iran for a fifth night, and I will talk to Edmund Fitton-Brown, get his view on that, maybe James Sunderland as well too, actually. Loads to discuss. Please, let's discuss it together between now and 10. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, last night was a tense one for many people, not least me, because I was thinking there were going to be too many viewers and listeners, but actually there were many, many loyal people who stood by the programme, and I gave you the updates on the football. England were doing so well for such a long time, especially after that 55th minute goal, but they couldn't defeat Argentina, who came back with two further goals. But the controversy was on the pitch, but after the game, when a number of Argentinian players held up a sign on the pitch talking about the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands, alleging that Las Malvinas, as they call it, were Argentinian, which of course they are not. We remember, of course, the many brave soldiers in the Falklands War in 1982. In fact, 255 of them who lost their lives, as well as 3 Falkland Islanders who lost their lives in that conflict. Well, one man who has served in the Falklands twice, Colonel James Sunderland, who's also a former Conservative MP for Bracknell, joins me now, as does Edmund Fitton-Brown, who's the former ambassador to Yemen. Great to have you both on the programme. James, firstly, what are your views on what has happened here?
Well, I was watching the World Cup last night, semi-final. It was a riveting game. Clearly, the result was very disappointing. And for the Argentinian players, clearly premeditated, clearly pre-planned, to come onto the pitch with a sign saying that the Falklands belong to Argentina is both nonsense and wrong. And I'm hoping that FIFA takes the appropriate action, because politics should have no place in sport at all. And I would have wanted to see the Argentinians be a bit more graceful in victory, which they clearly weren't last night.
Edmund, what do you make of this?
Well, I would echo those words, really. I think that there was an orchestrated campaign in the Argentinian camp to wind their players up. And I think that showed in the early parts of the match, where the Argentinian team was exceptionally aggressive in the first 10 minutes of the match, could easily have got a number of yellow cards. And I think we can argue about whether the referee actually let England down in that respect. But as for the sign at the end, yes, completely disgraceful, completely inappropriate. I'm afraid I don't think FIFA will take meaningful action. It'll probably be a desultory fine or similar.
Yes, it'll be very interesting to see what FIFA does. The Prime Minister echoing those comments, as has Peter Kyle, the Business Secretary. Let's hear what he said to our sister station, Times Radio, this morning.
Boy, did I support this team, and boy, am I proud of this team. When it comes to the Argentinians, I think the dignity with which our team acted, I think, is the perfect contrast, and really shows you know, them for their own behaviour by contrast. And when it comes to the rest of it, FIFA need to really take the action that deserves to happen.
Peter Kyle speaking there. What do you make of this, James, and the kind of political leadership that has been shown here? And I wonder as well how you think the people on the Falkland Islands themselves, the Falkland Islanders, who have been so loyal to Britain. I mean, looking at that referendum in 2013, you're talking about literally 4 or 5 people who didn't agree with it, that the Falkland Islands should remain British.
Peter, there's so much to say. I mean, the first thing is that I don't often agree with Peter Kyle, but he's absolutely right. And I was really pleased to say the statement today from Number 10 saying that, you know, the World Cup is not ours, but the Falklands certainly are ours. Going back in history, 1765, British settlement on the Falklands. We've had a permanent administrative requirement and function in the Falklands since 1833. Of course, the task force sailed in 1982 to recapture the islands. So there is no question at all that the Falklands are British, and the people on the islands, I know them well, they're wonderful people. They absolutely want to be British. And I'm reminded of the referendum in 2013 where 99.8% of the population in the Falklands voted to remain part of the UK. Now, if that isn't unequivocal, I don't know what is. But what I do want to see now is, because we've seen politics and sport again, is the appropriate action taken by FIFA. And I also want to see the appropriate action taken by the FA against those Argentinian players playing in the Premier League.
Yes, Edmund, you've been part of a number of supranational bodies like the UN, for example. There's been a lot of controversy, which I'm sure you've been following in the United States with President Trump. I know you're based in the United States, where President Trump talking about Gianni Infantino, I should say, at FIFA. I just wonder if you've any faith in FIFA to actually deal with this properly. You said maybe a desultory fine or something like that. I mean, can pressure be put on them? Should it be put on them? When should it happen? Should it happen before the final or afterwards?
Well, I mean, I'm afraid I don't have any faith in them. And you can see that in the dealings that Infantino has had with Trump, there's a kind of a cynicism about it. You know, he probably thinks he's clever, sort of becoming a friend of the US president. Maybe it was a shrewd thing to do ahead of the World Cup. But then you end up with that scandal over Balogun's suspension over the red card. I don't think FIFA will do anything that makes them unpopular. And I'm afraid that in terms of popular feeling against Argentina on this issue, it's in Britain, but I don't think it's anywhere else. I don't think FIFA will take any notice.
It's a very fair point, actually. And James, when we think about this and we think about the fact that Argentina has now accused a British warship of an illegal incursion hours after the World Cup win, this is about a lot more than a sign, isn't it? It's about history, it's about politics, it's about the military even at the moment, James.
Yeah, there's a deep grievance there. The Argentinians think that the Falklands belong to them. Of course, they never have belonged to the Argentinians. They've never had any legal claim at all on the Falklands. Every time a British ship goes down to the Falklands, there's the usual raft of protests of the Argentinian government. You've got British submarines going down there occasionally, and of course, that's not necessarily known to the Argentinian government. But quite clearly, it's a sore. It's a festering sore. You know, the Argentinians are using all of the levers at their disposal, both on the pitch of the World Cup and also with the UN and through diplomacy, to put the appropriate pressure on the UK to somehow relinquish what's theirs. But the bottom line is the islanders clearly are British. They voted to remain British. They have no intention at all of ceding their territory and their islands to the Argentinians.
Can I ask you both, with your great knowledge of the military and how these things work diplomatically as well, in Edmund's case, although he has some military knowledge as well, of course, is in regard to Iran and where things are right now. We have the fifth night of attacks. Caroline Leavitt, who is back after maternity leave, the press spokeswoman for Donald Trump, saying he's going to make a primetime address on this. Your assessment of where this is, Edmund, diplomatically, and then maybe we'll get a sort of more military view from James, but where this is diplomatically and where the American public are as well, Edmund, from your background in the United States.
Yeah, so the Memorandum of Understanding and the ceasefire have collapsed. And at the same time, we have a spike in hostility between the Houthis and the Saudis, which may mean that that ceasefire, which has been in place for about 4 years, may also be in trouble. And then, of course, we have in Lebanon the trilateral understanding between the Lebanese, Israeli and American governments, which itself contradicts the Memorandum of Understanding and is something that the Iranians regard as a violation. So I think we're standing on the edge of a fully resumed hostilities. It's happening already. The Americans are making strikes. I expect that their main focus will be on resuming the naval blockade of the Iranian ports, which they didn't give time to have effect when they did it before. In my view, that is the correct policy. I think that the naval blockade, if it is sustained, will eventually force the Iranians into a slightly more reasonable position.
And your thoughts, James?
Yeah, who knows where it's going to end, Peter? It's one of these things that is not clear-cut. What are the policy aims that the US has got? What are their strategic aims? It wasn't clearly defined at the start of the conflict, and my view is that because it wasn't clearly defined, because we're not really sure what the Americans are trying to achieve, that it will just continue unsatisfactorily. Clearly, the MOU hasn't worked. Negotiations have broken down. Diplomacy, it's non-existent between the two countries. And I'm afraid I cannot predict the future. But I see a longer, drawn-out conflict, both militarily and a kind of Cold War, perhaps, between the two countries. And the Americans are absolutely hell-bent on regime change. It's unlikely to happen for the reasons that we know. And I can just see more of the same in 12 months' time.
Do you agree with that pessimism? And also particularly about regime change as well. My sense, although I'm probably wrong, is that Trump had kind of moved away from that to some degree. What's your perspective, Edmund?
I think regime change might come in due course for organic reasons. You know, the cycle of protests in Iran have been more and more frequent, and they've been more and more serious. For whatever reason, I don't think the military campaign did much to advance that. I think the Americans talked about it, the Israelis talked about it, they didn't do anything about it. So I think one of the things that we probably ought to be aiming for is, you know, that Cold War that you quite rightly talk about. It might actually not be a bad outcome in the sense that it then puts the Iranians back on their own, having to focus on the problems they have at home, a collapsed economy, an angry and disillusioned population. And then the one thing I would add is I think we do need to hold on to the law of the sea. I think we need to be very clear that there is a risk of both the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb to the Red Sea both being closed by the Iranians and the Houthis. And we have to be ready to resist this. We cannot accept this interference with international waterways. And frankly, if we take a more robust position on this and build a more meaningful coalition with other Western countries, there is a chance that it also deters people like the Argentinians from wondering whether they might have another go at the Falklands.
Thank you both very much indeed. Two great speakers there, and they know a heck of a lot of what they speak. Colonel James Sunderland, former Conservative MP from for Bracknell, and also obviously former senior officer in the UK Army. He's done 2 tours of the Falklands. And Edmund Fitton-Brown there, former ambassador to Yemen too. Really appreciate you joining us on the programme. There's been a pretty extraordinary development in Parliament actually, and that is that David Davis, the former Cabinet Minister, now Conservative backbencher, Sir David Davis, has said that a lying Nicola Sturgeon, he said in Parliament, destroyed Alex Salmond to save her own skin. She's denied that, says he is telling lies like a card behind the legal privilege of Westminster. We'll have a look at what David Davis said in Parliament in just a second and get your reaction as well, including to the Falklands story. So stay with us here on Talk.
I've thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Binface apparently is now 5-1.
Brilliant.
You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Binface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Pretty extraordinary address to the House of Commons today from David Davis, Sir David Davis, the former Brexit Secretary. He's really gone for Nicola Sturgeon, saying that lying Sturgeon destroyed Salmond to save her own skin. She denies that, says he's a coward, telling lies, cowering behind the legal privilege of Westminster. So privilege is an interesting thing. You can basically say things in Parliament and not be sued. The reason Nicola Sturgeon's not going to sue me, I hope, is because I'm simply reporting what David Davis has said. Let's take a look at what he said in Parliament earlier.
Did Sturgeon not wonder where he got the money for all those vehicles? The kitchenware, the handbags, the pens, the pendants she loved? After all, who used the Dyson hairdryers in that household? My view on her denials is clear. She is lying. She knew full well what her husband was doing and how those luxury purchases were funded. That Morrell was a thief was obvious in the 1980s when he stole from Alex Salmond. Salmond told Sturgeon it was deeply unwise to keep her husband on as chief executive, but she kept him in place, enabling his crimes for years. She behaved dishonourably and dishonestly, but her most evil act was stitching up Alex Salmond to hide the truth. When he was considering going on the national executive himself, the risk to the conspirators was clear. Here's a numerate man who could not be silenced. So what did they do? In Salmond's own words, there was a malicious and concerted attempt to remove him from public life in Scotland by a range of individuals within the Scottish Government. The senior Scottish Government figures created a procedure for dealing with sexual harassment allegations that deliberately targeted Salmond. That procedure was so biased that a judge ruled it unlawful and tainted by apparent bias. So having lost that, they brought prosecutions against it. But Salmond was acquitted on all charges by a majority female jury before a female judge. It now appears clear that these actions to destroy a man's reputation and life were motivated by a desire to hide their own crimes. There are many unresolved questions. But what happened with £60,000 of items dropped from the indictment? The hairstylers, the lingerie, the books by Sturgeon's favourite authors. Morrell was clearly protecting Sturgeon by removing items that incriminated her.
David Davis using parliamentary privilege there to make some very strong allegations against Nicola Sturgeon. She has hit back, accusing him of being part of an old boys club that was telling more lies about me and of hiding like a coward behind the legal privilege of Westminster. We'll talk to one of the Scottish political editors of the papers, I think it's Michael Blackley of the Daily Mail, a little bit later on in the programme about this. It is quite a strange and very interesting development, certainly, that Sir David Davis has done this. We've also asked Sir David Davis to come on the programme, and if he gets back to us between now and 10, we will certainly happily have him on the programme. Jill in Cornwall has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000, not about this, but about Argentina and their behaviour, their outrageous behaviour after the match last night. Thank you for your call, Jill. What would you like to say?
Well, considering Argentina didn't exist, we were out in the Falkland Islands long before Argentina was a country. I mean, for goodness sake, who do they think they are? And to be honest,
good point.
The people of the people of the Falklands should be allowed to decide for themselves who they would want as, well, when I say governing party, who they would want to sort of regard them as their country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that I'm just horrified at the way the Argentina have behaved.
Why do you think they've done it, Jill? Why do you think they feel they can do that, especially after, you know, humiliating the England football team on the pitch? And then this wasn't just people in the crowds, this wasn't just the punters, this was the actual players themselves who won't have been alive, probably, when the 1982, I don't think any of the players on the pitch were alive during the 1982 war, but they will know the hurt, they will know the bloodshed, they will know the soldiers who gave their lives, and the Falkland Islanders as well. They'll be aware of that to some degree, but they also felt that moment was the time to hold up that banner.
Well, to be honest, I don't think we did ourselves any favour with the football match. I'm really horrified at the fact that there were so many defenders sent on.
6 of them in the final minutes, yeah.
Ridiculous. It was just stupid. Absolutely stupid. No wonder we lost, to be honest. Anyway, I just believe that. I mean, we've been in the Falklands since 1830, I think.
Something like that, 1832, 1833, something like that. So Jill, on Sunday, will you be cheering for Spain, or what will you be doing?
Well, as I've got to pick one of them, I suppose Spain would be the one I might choose. But I am really disappointed that we lost, but I don't think we did ourselves any favour in the last section of the football match. With the manager sending on so many defenders, you know, it was just ridiculous. Why did he do it?
Well, who's to blame? Is the manager to blame, or is the players to blame? Because Thomas Tuchel, of course, has said it's in the DNA of the players that they weren't fighting hard enough.
Well, they would have had instructions. I would have thought they would have been told how to sort of respond to the players that were coming on.
Or is it a tradesman blaming his tools, do you think?
Well, here we go again. It's just so many things that are so upsetting. I'm upset with Keir Starmer. I'm upset with the fact that he's giving... Look, I know we need to support Ukraine. I don't say that we shouldn't, but you know, he's on the way out the door, and he's giving the Ukraine 250 million, I think, to help with military. When he can't even put this country right.
Yeah.
I think there are so many things at the moment that are upsetting, and it all comes down to the people at the top end, oddly enough.
And there's a new one coming in very, very soon. In fact, Jill, thanks for your call. Appreciate that, Jill in Cornwall. It will be tomorrow morning that Andy Burnham is officially confirmed as leader of the Labour Party. I'll be there. It'll happen in London, and I will be reporting for Talk on that, probably into Mark Dolan's programme. He's on tomorrow, isn't he? He's on in the, or is Alex Phillips from between 10 to 1, maybe the top team behind the glass can check. I think it's Mark Dolan tomorrow. So I will be reporting into that programme and throughout the day as well on Andy Burnham becoming leader of the Labour Party. It's Monday that he becomes Prime Minister, and both Samara Gill and I will be reporting on that throughout the day, as well into all the different programmes throughout the day, as well as doing my own programme tomorrow night and right throughout the week. Next week I'm not going anywhere until the end of the summer. I'm off for a few days then, going to the Edinburgh Festival, which I'm looking forward to. Laura Jane is in Hampshire and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Laura Jane, what's on your mind?
Just to let you know, it is always Mark Dolan on a Friday morning, so you will be reporting to him.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, well, he does the breakfast show, doesn't he? Yes.
Yes.
And then it's, sorry, I should know this off the top of my head. And then, of course, it's Alex Phillips between 10 and 1. So, yes, I may well be on both programmes, actually. We'll see.
Exactly.
We're still looking into the logistics of it. Believe it or not, Laura Jane, Labour haven't told us where it is yet. They'll tell us tomorrow morning where it is. They said London.
You surprised me there. It might be in Manchester, so you might have to take the train.
It's definitely in London. I've checked that. So if it was in Manchester, I'd be going up tonight, yeah.
Well, I suppose we should be honoured. Anyway, talking about the NEETs, I've learnt this new word. I thought both Leo and James were very sensible, and Leo mentioned something actually after I spoke to your colleague, researcher. He mentioned something that I've been advocating for ages, which is voluntary service, and for that you would get, he had a very good idea about paying back debt. My youngest would have loved that. Anyway, paying back your university debt. But I do think voluntary service doesn't need to be in the army. I think they do it in lots of European countries, and I think it would be a great way of getting people to meet people from different backgrounds, do things in the local community.
I agree with you, Laura Jane, and I also think that there is something, Rishi Sunak used to talk about the dignity of work. There is something about getting up in the morning, going somewhere, doing something productive. It's different with school. Okay, yeah, you've got to get up for school, you've got to have discipline, but you're not being paid to be there, and it's not a job that you necessarily are, it's not a job, and you're not given money for it, although there are some people who are given allowances and things for sixth form and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually serving your country in some way, making a positive difference, I think it would do many young people the world of good, actually.
I do. And I think I've said this before on your programme, or certainly on Talk, that I'm not in favour of everybody going to university. Once again,
totally agree with you, Laura Jane. Do you know what, actually? I'm talking of a friend. I'm now at the age, Laura Jane, where it's my friend's kids. So he has a 16-year-old son. He's just done his GCSEs. The son is waiting for his results, as many GCSE students are, of course. And he is debating with his dad and saying, do I do A-levels? Do I go to university? Is it actually worth it to go to university? Because there are loads of people who've left university who can't get jobs. Another one of my friend's kids, who I wrote a reference for a summer scheme, she was contacting me today. She's got 2-1 in history. Good for her, you know, from Manchester, really good university. She's worried about the jobs market as well, and thinks that unless she does a master's degree, she's probably not going to get a graduate job.
Well, that's the trouble, is they go on to all these different things because they've got no choice, like masters and doctorates. But I always remember saying to my youngest, who's now 28, if you choose the University of Life, I will be right behind you. I think that it's a great pity that Tony Blair, I think he was just trying to make everybody feel equal under the eyes of education.
Well, I just think 50% going to university is crazy, Laura Jane. Can I tell you something, actually, from my own experience? I had a really rough time in first year of university. I was very depressed. I was really not having a good time at all. And my mum wrote me, I don't often talk to my mum because she doesn't like me talking about her on the air, and that's fine, but I will on this occasion. She wrote me a lovely letter and said, son, if you drop out of university, go to another university, become a bin man, whatever you want to do, we will be proud of you, which I thought was excellent parenting from her.
And I said the same thing. I mean, you know, but the University of Life is a very valuable thing, and it doesn't have to be, you know. I hate using this cliche, in my day, but in my day, only 8 of us went to university out of our class, and that was perfectly normal. And people went on to other things and trained in other ways.
Of course.
And you know, obviously.
And we should never be sniffy about going to university or not going to university, or getting good grades or not getting good grades. People have to reach their potential in whatever way that is. My brother, for example, didn't go to university. Took him a little while to work out his way in life, and he now runs a successful business, and good for him. Laura Jane, we're both wrong about who's on tomorrow, because tomorrow morning between 6 and 10 you'll have the great company of Mr. Jeremy Kyle, who doesn't usually do a Friday, but is tomorrow. Then between 10 and 1, you will have the company of Mr. Mark Dolan. So he's doing 10 to 1. Jeremy's doing breakfast.
I stand corrected.
Well, I do too. I do too. So we're both wrong, and we'll just be there in our wrongness. But we've got it right now. Thank you very much, Laura Jane from Hampshire. Great call. Always good to hear from you. Lots to discuss. We'll talk about Harry, Prince Harry, slamming the judge. There are 2 former Justice Secretaries, Sir Robert Buckland, my old boss, and Alex Chalk, who are saying that it's unacceptable for him to do that. We'll speak to one of the witnesses in the case. Nicole Lampert will be with us. Also, she'll give us her view on the Palestinian family of 18 from Gaza winning a human rights challenge to come to Britain. Lots to discuss in all of that. Make sure you give me a shout on your views on whatever you want to discuss this evening. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Simon in Portadown, who says, Sadiq Khan becoming a member of the House of Lords, haven't we suffered enough? Lots to discuss on all of that, and please do give me a shout on what you think of Lord Khan, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk about another member of the nobility, that is Prince Harry. He is, well, royalty rather than nobility. He is being criticised by two former Justice Secretaries, Sir Robert Buckland and Alex Chalk, Conservatives both. And Prince Harry has attacked the judge who presided over the hacking case against the publisher of the Daily Mail. Now, that judge will currently be deciding who pays the £50 million bill. He says that it was Prince Harry's attack it was unacceptable, say the two former Justice Secretaries, both of whom we asked in the programme, both of whom sadly are too busy tonight. But the criticism of the over-the-top and personal comments has come after the Lady Chief Justice has expressed the safety concerns. And it's interesting because the Duke called the judgment a complete and obvious whitewash. This judgment represents a complete reversal of the position which previous judges have taken in relation to the hacking claims successfully brought against both News Group newspapers and Mirror Group newspapers, who were represented by, at the time, the judge who made this decision. The statement went on, it is a complete and obvious whitewash, but sadly not altogether unexpected. However, the lengths to which the court has gone to exonerate the Mail is as shocking as it is unwarranted. But Alex Chalk, who's a KC himself, he's a barrister, he served under Rishi Sunak as Justice Secretary, and Sir Robert Buckland, who was Justice Secretary under Boris Johnson, have both criticised this. Sir Robert says the tone and content was not appropriate. Alex Chalk said expressing disagreement with the judgment is perfectly reasonable, but Harry's attack on a High Court judge was over the top, personal and unacceptable. Judges act in the name of the King and swear an oath of allegiance to the Sovereign. That's how our Constitution works, as Harry should know better than most. However disappointed he was with the result, including insulting one of His Majesty's judges, is a line he shouldn't have crossed. Well, one of the witnesses in the case is Nicole Lampert, who's a journalist and broadcaster, friend of the programme. Nicole, what do you make of this? More arrogance from Prince Harry, clearly?
Harry is an idiot, isn't he? I mean, he just really is a very stupid man, because I can only imagine that his own lawyers would have said, don't say that.
Yeah.
Because this same judge you are attacking personally is, in a few days' time, going to be deciding who is paying for this enormous waste of time court case, this enormous £50 million worth of court case. As we know, some of that money will be covered by insurance, but there'll be a lot that won't be. And that judge will be making that decision. And Harry has broken convention, and he's certainly broken kind of rules of propriety in attacking the judge himself.
He's also not just some punter. You know, he is a member of the royal family. It is His Majesty's judiciary, it is his father's judiciary that he is attacking. It's not just, oh, well, I'll just, you know, have vibes and a tweet and have my opinion as an influencer. He does, whether he likes it or not, have a role in this as well.
Well, exactly. You know, and it is interesting that the King still saw him afterwards and didn't just say off with your head or go home. But I totally understand why the King wanted to see this petulant child, this petulant man-child, son of his, who, as we know, has kind of like basically been in a massive hissy fit for years now. And that's what it was. It was a hissy fit because he didn't get his way. He didn't. And the sad thing about this really is that he brought Doreen Lawrence into it. She's also... She put out that statement with him. So not only is she being dragged into this court case against the newspaper that did more than any other to help her, against the journalists who work closely with her, but now she's also in the hawk for attacking the High Court judge. And yes, I would expect Harry to behave better, but this is him, isn't it? This is him. You know, there is one side of Harry, and we saw it last week, where he's this fun guy. We're doing amazing charity work, and then this other side who thinks he's always right and thinks that he should be able to get away with whatever he wants. And as one of the witnesses in the trial, I was a victim of that. Me and the other journalists, this entire bed of lies that dominated our lives for years, and the judge found for us that we hadn't done any of the things that they alleged of us. And and Harry's throwing his toys at the pram. Really, it's pathetic. I would say totally pathetic.
It's interesting that Sir Robert Buckland also pointing out that the Lady Chief Justice Sue Carr, Baroness Carr of Walton on the Hill, she'd recently expressed concern over the safety of sitting judges. We have a big debate at the moment about security for MPs. I had talked about judges as well, and actually High Court judges in Northern Ireland have round-the-clock protection and have for a number of years from the Close Protection Unit of the Police Service of Northern Ireland. Sue Carr, Baroness Carr, said at the time when the judiciary is facing increasing threats to their security, it is important that major figures in public life and members of the royal family exercise restraint. I mean, I think that's probably unprecedented for a Lady Chief Justice or a Lord Chief Justice to have essentially admonished a member of the royal family. It is an extraordinary statement, but one I think that we can probably all agree with.
Yeah, I mean, Harry is out of control, a bit like his uncle Andrew as well. And it is very interesting that these are both the spares, and they've both been brought up with immense privilege, think they can get away with anything. And as we have certainly seen with Andrew, allegedly got away with some terrible stuff. So obviously the two of them are quite different, but what we are seeing is just these people that think they have power to over everything else. That what they care about, what they think is more important than the law or anything else really, and it's really revolting. Yeah. And I hope that he's punished for it when the judgment comes out. I really do, because he's the one that's really pushed for this case. He's the one that got Doreen Lawrence involved in this case, and he's the one that's kind of been riding on his knight of shining armor. I'm going to destroy the Daily Mail, and he doesn't seem to get the word no. Doesn't seem to understand it.
I wonder if I could ask you just about tomorrow, because Andy Burnham will become the leader of the Labour Party. He's going to become Prime Minister on Monday. We've heard from him twice now on Gaza, something we've talked about an awful lot, Nicole, and on both occasions, both the interview with Gary Lineker, I mean, I don't, you know, I can't even express how much my eyes are rolling at the fact that Gary Lineker was chosen, for goodness sake, and then, of course, was unchallenged when he used the word genocide. What do you make of Andy Burnham so far, given that he's expressing this view on the Middle East, making it very, very clear what he thinks of Israel?
It's this completely stupid binary, and it worries me both as a Jewish person and as a Zionist, someone who believes in the state of Israel, but also as a Brit who's now going to have what appears to be an idiot as our new Prime Minister. And of course, he's not an idiot. He went to Cambridge, he read English.
Diane Abbott went to Cambridge, David Lammy went to Cambridge. Let's not get too excited.
I think you went to Oxford, didn't you?
Maybe.
So I worry about it, because listening to him talk, it seems to be that he thinks that Hamas suddenly arrived, did October 7 and then vanished, and then naughty Israel for carrying on the war. Burnham was one of the first to call for a ceasefire within 20 days of the Hamas attack. So Israel at that point hadn't even gone into Gaza, and he's calling for a ceasefire. Now, if anyone, say the Irish invaded Britain and killed 6,000 of our people and took 1,000 of them hostage, would we stop after 2 or 3 weeks and say there's enough? No, there's no understanding of what the Israelis went through, and also what was in their minds, which was to say, enough of this, we are going to destroy Hamas. And, you know, sadly, that they haven't managed to do that with 2 years down the line, and, well, 3 years nearly now down the line, and many thousands of people dead, and they still haven't managed to do it. But that shows how difficult the challenge was. And yet they're calling for a ceasefire after 2 weeks so that they can go on and do it again. It's ridiculous.
What do you make of the news that a Palestinian family from Gaza has won a human rights challenge to claim refuge in Britain? There's a mother of 3 who was born in Gaza, originally refused permission to bring her extended family in, but now we've got both parents, a brother, his wife, 4 children, a sister and 4 children, and another sister, her husband, and 3 children. They've won a legal challenge on human rights grounds. This was fought by the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. The original application took place about a month after the 7th of October attacks, and a human rights appeal was made last year. Then the family won their case under the Right to Family Life European Convention on Human Rights law. What do you make of this?
look, I can understand why anyone would want to leave Gaza. There's been a horrible war there, and many people, as we just discussed, have died. But if the next government would, I'm not talking about Andy Burnham's, but the one after that, if they pull down, if they take us out of the European Convention of Human Rights and all of that, then the human rights lawyers in this country only have themselves to blame. I just read the case, and it seems to me that the case simply was that the Gazan woman here and her 3 children, because they were so upset about their family, this is why we are now suddenly importing 18 other Gazans who don't speak English and will be totally reliant on the British state. And this speaks firstly to a much bigger problem in our country, the power of the human rights lawyers, but also it's dangerous. We don't know who they are. We don't know. Do we want to be inviting more radicals into this country? And of course, this sets a new precedent and opens the floodgates. It's just, it's crazy. And good on Shabana Mahmood for pushing it and for fighting it. And hopefully she'll fight it even further.
Nicole, thank you. That's, of course, if she stays as Home Secretary. I hope she does, actually. But Nicole Lambert there, journalist and broadcaster there, and the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, talked about this and said this risks opening the floodgates to thousands of Palestinians claiming asylum here, which Keir Starmer has already said he opposes due to Labour's pitiful adherence to flawed human rights laws. Why should immigrants be allowed to ship in their entire extended family to the UK? The Home Secretary must urgently appeal the shameful decision to a higher court. We cannot have open borders with huge numbers of migrants exploiting human rights laws to come here or stay here. Let me read a couple of messages. David says it will be interesting to know if the USA will let the UK use their air bases to attack Argentina. Should Argentina wish to attack the Falklands? And will Ukraine supply us with weapons? I went to Limpstone CTC RM in 1989, inspired by our lads, and followed my dad into the Irish Guard, says David in the Cotswolds. Ian in Oldham says, in my opinion, the Argentinians have been emboldened by Starmer and Hermer's weak surrender of the Chagos Islands, says Ian. Kaz in Staffordshire says, great show as always. Evening, Peter. Evening, Kaz. Thank you for your message. Just want to heap praise on our England team. They did us proud. I do blame the manager's tactics for our loss. As for Argentina, I would like to see all of the players that were celebrating by the sign punished. You don't bring politics into footy. Come on, Spain, says Kaz. And Stuart says, when you talk about schools and your dad in Ireland being a head teacher, can I remind you that in my country, most places are called academies, primary and secondary, and the leaders are principals. So there is a lot which you do not know about England, my country. It might not be classed as your country and you prefer Ireland unless you have a first and second country, or are you just here to use us for your work? I respect teachers in my country, which you clearly do not, as you think you're better all the time and try to put teachers down, making yourself look stupid, says Stuart. Well, Stuart, there's a couple of points in that. One is my dad wasn't a teacher in Ireland. My dad was a teacher in Northern Ireland, which is different, and partition has existed since 1922. Maybe you're not aware of that. Secondly, he was called a principal, and the reason I referred to him as a head teacher is that mostly when I talk to English friends and colleagues about someone being a principal, they say, oh, is that like a head teacher? Or the words can be used interchangeably. So they're not academies in Northern Ireland, they're primary and secondary schools. And yes, there is a lot I don't know about England, although I have lived here for about half my life, and I probably know a little bit about it. Also, I'm a citizen of the United Kingdom, and of course that's all one kingdom together of the awesome force of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Do I prefer Ireland? No. Do I prefer Northern Ireland, which you could have asked me to be accurate? I mean, I like the two for different reasons. And I do absolutely respect teachers. I respect the people who taught me. I respect both my parents who were teachers, and I respect many of my friends who are currently teachers or have been teachers in the past. Stuart, thank you for your message. I don't really understand why you sent it, but you're very welcome to keep contributing to the programme. We're going to talk in just a second about the wisdom or otherwise of HS2. Stay with us.
thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Binface apparently is now 5-1.
Brilliant.
You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Binface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Dave in London, who says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Dave. He says, so Khan has become a lord. I fear the worst is to come. He could end up as Chancellor or even PM. Sue says, why are these Palestinians going to Muslim countries? Stuart says, your callers like Laura Jane can easily talk about their voluntary work when they're sitting on their state pensions. They need to wind their neck in and talk about things which they do know something about. If someone has a master's degree, then they look for a postgraduate job, not a graduate job. Well, it depends. Depends. I mean, sometimes you can't get a graduate job and you need another degree on top of that. So there we are. Oh, hold on. See here, Stuart again. This is the guy who was on a minute ago. There's another message from him. I'm sorry that your early months at university were not good, but if you rudely treated people there in the same way as you speak to your callers, even older professional ones, then you deserved it. Says Stuart. Stuart, seriously, I mean, okay, I wonder what I've done to upset you. I mean, I had a chat with a number of callers this evening who I had a very nice discussion with, but clearly you've got to be in your bonnet about something anyway. Zarina says, I blame the way Prince Harry has been brought up. He really is unpalatable. P.S. My daughter is going to Cambridge and she is super clever. Zarina, I'm sure you're incredibly proud of your daughter and well done to her. I want to talk a little bit about Andy Burnham and what he might do as Prime Minister, because he said previously that he would reinstate the northern leg of HS2 if he becomes Prime Minister. He said he would revive it between Birmingham and Manchester, and that's something that he is on the record as saying a while ago, about a month ago. Michael Gross is the founder of Sydney and London Properties and was the property owner in a landowner in Euston with some of the land that has been used for HS2. Michael, what do you make of this? You're very welcome to the programme.
Good evening. Well, Andy Burnham, whose CV shows that he's never occupied any sort of job other than a political party activist in the Soviet style, was deeply involved in the Ponzi scheme, which is what HS2 has been since 2014, and therefore, like every person involved in a Ponzi scheme, he can't get it stopped. He has to continue it, otherwise people will wonder why something which was supposed to be a national network for 33 billion is now a branch line from Old Oak Common to outside Birmingham, Curzon Street, at about 150 billion. And by the time, if ever, it's finished, without Euston, without access to central London, will be about 300 billion.
Why do you call it a Ponzi scheme, Michael? What's your reasoning for that?
Well, a Ponzi scheme is when people extract money in the private sector from investors, in the public sector from taxpayers' money through the exchequer, for a project that is never been viable, has no economic return, and keeps on going because the people who benefit from it don't want to stop it either for their own gain or because they would be exposed as for what they are.
Okay, tell us about your own involvement when it came to the property that you owned around Euston and your engagement with HS2.
Right, I owned all the buildings that stand in the forecourt of Euston Station, 40 Melton Street as it was then called, Grant Thornton House, the Podium and 1 Eversholt Street, which were the headquarters of Network Rail, and they were the subject of the biggest compulsory purchase order in history, which was settled. And I accepted that settlement because unlike 20,000 people up and down the line who were deprived of their statutory right to fair and proper compensation for their homes and their business premises, I was in the fortunate position to have the resources and the strength of character to fight them. And if I tell you that at the point we settled, about 6 months before we would have come up against the Upper Lands Tribunal, the costs were around, both sides' cost amounted to about £25 million. You can understand why I was prepared to settle.
Yes. So, I mean, it's interesting, HS2 as a concept. If it were to have worked as it was originally meant to, would you have supported it?
We all thought that, oh, well, France has got it, Italy's got it, a total of 7 countries had it, that in principle the idea of fast trains are a good idea. But Britain, with the shorter distances, the planning problems, it was never economic. It was Lord Adonis's fantasy, which unfortunately got legs. But as early as 2014, at the time of Sir David Higgins' first report, it was known by them that the figures that they were putting forward, which ultimately were the figures increased from 33 odd to about 53, were the false figures that obtained the royal assent in 2017. And the proof of that, it cost me a hell of a lot of money in 6 figures, a part of about 2 million that I spent on this in the public interest, not in my particular interest, was the report by Rod Stone, a former senior fraud investigator of HMRC, the Revenue, who has established that from 2014 they knew this project was never achievable or viable. Remember, it was supposed to start running this year.
Yes.
And now the government's best estimates are mid-40s, probably into the 50s, another 25 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Why?
At 10 times the cost.
Why is it, do you think, Michael, that this has spiralled out of control to such a huge degree? People say we can do infrastructure things. Crossrail was pretty much on budget, pretty much on time.
No, it wasn't on budget, it wasn't on time.
Okay, I said pretty much. A lot of people feel that it was done certainly better than HS2 anyway. So why is it that that can just about work and be functioning, whereas this project has clearly become so out of control when it comes to the finances?
Well, there are 2 primary reasons. The first is the cover-up. Politicians never want to admit they've made major mistakes. Now, Boris, for instance, did say that Euston was a disaster, a black hole, but he intended to keep on digging. Now, if you ask Andrew Gilligan and Dominic Cummings, his own personal advisors on the subject, they will tell you they told Boris it was completely hopeless, but he, for political corrupt purposes, for his own power base, didn't want to lose the northern constituencies.
I just want to keep us both out of court, Michael, and be very clear that there's no suggestion that Boris Johnson is corrupt in any way.
In political terms, he is. I didn't say he got financial money. But
okay.
Let's look who benefited from this 100+ billion so far. And it's only one area, it's the supply chain. And then you have to look who gave the supply chain the authority to keep going when all the figures that they announced proved to be untrue, and it's continuing. And that is our politicians, our parliamentarians, and our civil servants.
When it comes to Andy Burnham, clearly you don't have much faith in what he'll do. What do you think he'll actually do? Will he come good on this from his perspective and say that between Birmingham and Manchester it will be revived? And what do you think the implications of that will be?
Well, you have to look at the state of the country. We are in hock to the bond market at the highest level ever. There is no money for defence, for education, for healthcare. And all Andy Burnham is talking about is increasing the expenditure while at the same time driving wealth producers out of the country.
Listen, thank you for that. That's Michael Gross there. He's the founder of Sydney and London Properties on HS2. Very, very interesting to hear from him. Thanks also to someone who wants to remain anonymous, saying investigation into all the continuing missing supplies for HS2. Us lorry drivers deliver it in and then redelivered. It's gone missing. Where is it all going? Alleges that person. Constitutional question from Testy on Tyneside, who says, now Khan is a lord. Is there anything legally stopping him becoming Prime Minister through the back door once Burnham's finished? No, although the election, of course, in 3 years' time might stop him. But certainly people do become ministers from the Lords. It doesn't happen that often, but let's remember, of course, David Cameron, who became Lord Cameron and became Foreign Secretary. Another person is Graham in Wokingham, who says, why is there so little coverage of the effective 20% reduction in PIP mobility higher rate? And quite a number of people have been in touch with nice comments as well on how I treat callers, which is apparently to their taste, and they're happy enough with it. So there we are. Thank you to everybody who has contributed. We're going to have a busy 9 o'clock hour, and the 9 o'clock hour is, of course, the hour where you have more of a chance to have your say, because we have even more caller sections. So if you do want to get your voice on the air on anything that we're discussing this evening, please do let me know. 0344 499 1000. I'm delighted that Dartmoor ponies have been saved after a Natural England Cull U-turn. Dominic Dyer, who I spoke to about that previously, will be on in the 9 o'clock hour. We're also going to talk about this extraordinary intervention by Sir David Davis, who we're hoping will be able to join us tomorrow night. We'll play again what he said about Nicola Sturgeon, accusing her of lying. She says he's the one lying. Lots to discuss on all of this. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company here on the Evening Exchange. It's been a busy evening and there's been a big breaking development, and that is what David Davis has been saying in Parliament about Nicola Sturgeon. It is extraordinary. He's used parliamentary privilege, which is a way that politicians can say things without legal redress. So he's calling Nicola Sturgeon a liar. I'm reporting him saying that, and I'm not at legal risk because he said it in the House of Parliament. In the House of Commons, he has something called parliamentary privilege. He has said some really strong things. She has hit back at him. We'll talk about that with Michael Blackley. He's the Scottish political editor of the Daily Mail in a second. We'll hear from you on all sorts of issues, on the Falklands, the controversy there, on youth unemployment, on the players holding up that banner at the match last night, and indeed about Andy Burnham becoming Prime Minister. We know so little about what he will do, and what I know so far and some of the appointments he's made, I'm not particularly happy, not least because Sadiq Khan is now Lord Khan, a reward for failure if ever there was one. What do you think about that? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Tell me I'm talking nonsense if you want. That's okay, because on this programme we disagree without being disagreeable. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter, at CardwellPeter on Instagram. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, you can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Let's hear a voice note now from Hayley on her views on Sadiq Khan.
Why is it Sadiq Khan is getting rewarded for denying that there were grooming gangs in London and denying he even knew what they were? You know what? They're rewarding the wrong people. It's just sickening to me. Everything is so wrong about government at the moment.
When it comes to Sadiq Khan, he was made a knight a number of years ago by the King, and this is what he said outside Buckingham Palace. I think you'll be very interested in how humble he is when receiving the knighthood.
It's a pinch me moment. It's just a huge honour to have His Majesty the King bestow me with this honour. And my mum's here, and she's been emotional since it was announced on January the 1st, and today's just a great day for the family, really. Well, I've got the pleasure of working closely with the King. We were just comparing who's the bigger workaholic. He was very chuffed that he'd managed to personally give me this honour, and he actually apologised for it taking so long, which is not a problem at all. Obviously, from my background being the son of immigrants, my parents coming here from Pakistan is a big deal for us. But also it's a recognition of, I think, the way in which public service can be recognised, and I'm really grateful.
Yeah. Andy Burnham tomorrow, big development as well. We have some information about what he's going to say. He is to promise a distinctly Labour future as he sets out his vision to give back control to communities across Britain. He says he's going to give people the hope that we will make this country the best it can be, arguing that only a confident Labour government can lift Britain up by putting people and places back at the heart of national decision making. We'll talk about all of that in a second with Michael Blackley, but the first thing I want to talk to Michael about is this extraordinary intervention by Sir David Davis, the former cabinet minister. Michael, you're very welcome to the programme. Let's just hear what Sir David has been saying in the House of Commons.
Did Sturgeon not wonder where he got the money for all those vehicles? The kitchenware, the handbags, the pens, the pendants she loved? After all, who used the Dyson hairdryers in that household? My view on her denials is clear. She is lying. She knew full well what her husband was doing and how those luxury purchases were funded. That Morrell was a thief was obvious in the 1980s when he stole from Alex Salmond. Salmond told Sturgeon it was deeply unwise to keep her husband on as chief executive, but she kept him in place, enabling his crimes for years. She behaved dishonourably and dishonestly, but her most evil act was stitching up Alex Salmond to hide the truth. When he was considering going on the national executive himself, the risk to the conspirators was clear. Here's a numerate man who could not be silenced. So what did they do? In Salmond's own words, there was a malicious and concerted attempt to remove him from public life in Scotland by a range of individuals within the Scottish Government. The senior Scottish Government figures created a procedure for dealing with sexual harassment allegations that deliberately targeted Salmond. That procedure was so biased that a judge ruled it unlawful and tainted by apparent bias. So having lost that, they brought prosecutions against it. But Salmond was acquitted on all charges by a majority female jury before a female judge. It now appears clear that these actions to destroy a man's reputation and life were motivated by a desire to hide their own crimes. There are many unresolved questions. But what happened with £60,000 of items dropped from the indictment? The hairstylers, the lingerie, the books by Sturgeon's favourite authors. Murrell was clearly protecting Sturgeon by removing items that incriminated her.
Extraordinary and legal, because he can do it in the House of Commons under parliamentary privilege. Michael Blackley is the Scottish political editor of the Daily Mail. Michael, what do you make of this?
It was pretty astonishing, really. I mean, what David Davis did over just a few minutes, he spoke for about 4 or 5 minutes and really laid out a long series of facts about the case and then reached some of his own conclusions. Conclusions that I suppose nobody else could say in a public forum in any way that he has. He's obviously, as you say, protected by parliamentary privilege, and he was able to reach some conclusions, the most striking of which was that really Nicola Sturgeon lied about the Peter Murrell scandal and then stitched up Alex Salmond to cover up the truth, because Alex Salmond, according to David Davis, could have revealed some of the truth that wasn't out there.
And he's saying the alleged cover-up had, in his words, cost Alex Salmond his life. I mean, those are really, really serious allegations. How has Nicola Sturgeon responded to this?
So it was pretty emphatic denial from Nicola Sturgeon. She came out pretty quickly and accused David Davis of being part of the Old Boys Club, and she accused him of peddling conspiracy theories in Parliament. So it was a pretty strong rebuttal, and she says that what he's said today is lies.
Yes, and reaction otherwise, what do you make?
It's really just, it's been breaking. I think people are pretty astonished by some of the detail of it. And this isn't the first time that David Davis has used this kind of forum. He used the House of Commons and parliamentary privilege to make some of these allegations. He did so before about Alex Salmond. Alex Salmond was a close friend of David Davis. They might be in different parties, but they were certainly close friends. And he has previously used parliamentary privilege to raise concerns about alleged conspiracy against Alex Salmond. So it's perhaps not a surprise. If anybody was going to do this, have the bravery to do it, it's going to be David Davis as a close friend of Alex Salmond. So the SNP as well have responded to it by simply saying that it was a complex and extensive police investigation that was carried out. And in the SNP's words, that investigation found that the SNP was the victim of embezzlement in this case. So the SNP have been very opposed to any further inquiry into this, because they believe that the police inquiry has happened, it's reached its conclusions, it took years, and they want everything they want that to be the end of it, whereas there's a real pressure for a parliamentary inquiry, whether that be at Westminster or at Holyrood, to look into the full aspects of this case and all the fallout from it. The SNP have been extremely reluctant, but David Davis was talking about the importance of a judicial inquiry, and these calls are not going to go away. I suspect if the Scottish Parliament do not hold an inquiry, there is going to be a way that the House of Commons can do it, probably through the Scottish Affairs Committee. And I think that is looming now.
Yes. Yes, I've certainly seen that report. Can I ask you a little bit about Andy Burnham, politics south of the border, but of course it affects Scotland as well. We've just received some information from his people. This special conference is happening tomorrow. I'm going. It's in London somewhere. We don't know where at this moment, but in London somewhere tomorrow, Andy Burnham will become leader of the Labour Party. He's going to set out a vision for a renewed Labour government, focusing on driving growth in every postcode. He's talked about that before, and returning power to communities. He will say it will be a government that will have the courage to fix the big things that politics has neglected and the conviction to argue for our plans. The new Labour leaders will say that Britain took a series of wrong turns in the 1980s when political power was centralised but economic power was privatised to build an economy and the country that works for all people and places. Andy will say that it requires a new path to the one we've been on for the last 40 years. He'll say the government he leads will be authentically Labour and argue that Labour should offer a confident alternative rooted in its own values with a vision for a distinctly Labour programme of economic renewal, more public control, reindustrialisation and power back in the hands of local communities. I mean, is there much substance there? He's also said he's going to be a leader for the North and the South, for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and for every town and every city in every nation and region of the great country. I mean, that's literally his job. It just a lot of this seems to me to be quite a bit of a word salad. Do you see much substance in that?
It did sound very much like trying to be something for everyone, and you know, he wants to talk about the economy. He wants to talk about Labour left-wing values as well. So perhaps not surprisingly, in terms of Andy Burnham, it is trying to be all things to all men at this stage. It doesn't really give much of an indication as to exactly what his leadership is going to be. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how much he reflects on what the Labour government has done wrong and what he's going to change now. I mean, he talks about the economy. There's thousands of job losses every month in the North Sea at the moment. So I think one of the things across the UK and particularly in the northeast of Scotland, people are going to be looking out for is he going to finally change tack on oil and gas drilling? Because there now
seems to be it seems to be the case that Ed Miliband won't be Chancellor, and I would imagine there'll be quite a few people in the Aberdeenshire area glad about that at least.
Well, he might not be Chancellor, but how is he going to have influence? Is the policies of Ed Miliband going to be consigned to the past or not? So yeah, I think a lot of people were pretty concerned when they heard that he might be the Chancellor, but it does look like it's moving away from that, perhaps.
Michael, always good to talk to you. That's Michael Blackley there, who is the Scottish political editor of the Daily Mail. Really interesting to hear his thoughts. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Serena says at least David Davis put his thoughts widely shared by some on the record. We're hoping to speak to Sir David tomorrow on the programme. I'll hopefully be able to update you through the day about what's happening there. I will also, as I say, be on during Mark Dolan's programme. He's on between 10 and 1 tomorrow, and it is during that time that Andy Burnham will become leader of the Labour Party, and I'll be reporting from that event, wherever it is, still don't know, somewhere in London, not Manchester anyway, we'll find out tomorrow morning, but I will be reporting into that with Mark, and I would imagine throughout the day as well. I'll also be doing the show, a slightly shorter show on a Friday between 7 and 9. I hope you can join me for that, and then on Monday, usual shows next week, 7 till 10 every night apart from Friday, 7 till 9. And on Monday, of course, Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister, and I'll be in Downing Street for that, happening throughout the day, talking to various presenters about that, because believe it or not, I've been at Talk for 5.5 years now, and it is my 4th change of Prime Minister, which is crazy. A friend of mine I was having who's about the same age as me, I'm 42, and he was saying his kids, I think his daughter is 5 or something, and said, you know, she's had 5, she'll be on her 5th Prime Minister. And I said, by the time our age, were on our 5th Prime Minister, we were sort of 28 years old or something like that. Penny says, why is Khan being made a Lord for total incompetence? Shame on King Charles II. He says, in fairness, the King doesn't have very much to do, actually, with Lord's appointments. That is, goes through a committee which he is not part of, but yeah, I don't think he would have had much say in it. We'll go to the phones in just a minute, and if you want to get your voice on the air between now and the end of the programme, there's plenty of opportunity to do so. No matter what is on your mind, let me know. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Binface apparently is now 5-1.
Brilliant.
You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Binface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who's been in touch. Just been looking at some of the tweets during the break there, and Andy says, glad to see Kemi is showing that her Conservatives are true to their words on getting rid of the Liberals and wokes. Big up Kemi. Talking about Gavin Barwell, who we spoke to earlier on, Lord Barwell. Amy says, Sadiq Khan getting a peerage is mad in my view. Also might be a stupid question, but how does the peerage nomination process work? Because Labour, Conservatives and the Lib Dems got to nominate peers, but Reform, Greens and others didn't get to. Well, listen, that's a fair point. I mean, the actual process, you do nominate, there's a whole committee that it goes through, but it's to do with party strengths in the Lords as well as in Parliament overall. It's a complex process. You can look it up on the parliamentary website. There are also a couple of crossbench peers, so they're not affiliated to any party. And one of them, for example, is Sir Chris Wormold, who's the former Cabinet Secretary. Also Sir Brian Levison, remember the Levison inquiry into journalism and the press. He has been made a Lord as well. So Amy, I could sit here for 40 minutes and I'll explain it to you, but unfortunately the show is a bit packed. But it is a complex process. But essentially the parties will nominate various people. I think Reform UK should certainly have they have people who've defected to Reform UK in the Lords, but they don't have their own nominations, and I agree with you that they should, even though they're in parliamentary terms anyway a small party. But if they become a bigger party in parliamentary terms, they will do an awful lot and change the Lords a lot. I think Les says most of the problems with hospitality failures can be traced back to the net zero policies by the likes of Ed Miliband. The price of a couple of drinks and 2 average meals is extortionate, and folk just stay at home with a supermarket bottle of Plonk and a meal. It's the cost of heating and cooking created by net zero, production costs through the roof, with oil and gas costs and heating 5 times more expensive than our competitors. The cost of transporting refrigerated goods, paying business rates, then travelling to a venue, plus parking charges exorbitant. I'm afraid hospitality is on a downward spiral if Ed Miliband carries on with his madcap policy. Well, that absolutely chimes, Les, with what I have heard from so many people who run pubs. It is a very, very difficult thing these days. On Gavin Barwell, lots of people getting in touch on him. One person says, scramble on Twitter. I love some of these names. I quote, Kemi is out of touch with the views of most Conservative voters. Yes, that is because most of them would now vote Reform. And Matt says, Gavin Barwell, mastermind of May's election strategy, a real genius there. Matt, I'm sorry to disappoint you. He isn't, in fact, the mastermind of May's electoral strategy. Her chiefs of staff at the time, before Gavin Barwell, he was still an MP, were Fiona Hill and Nick Timothy. Nick Timothy, now the Shadow Justice Secretary, and it was Linton Crosby and them who put together the 2017 election. So Gavin Barwell, you can accuse of many things, but that is not one of them. On David Davis, loads of people getting in touch, including Michael, who says, let's face it, David Davis said nothing under parliamentary privilege that the vast majority of the nation outside Parliament are thinking. He put it in a more erudite manner, but echoes the nation. And Michael, thank you for that. And you may well be interested to know that hopefully, it's not nailed down just yet, but we're hoping to speak to David Davis tomorrow night on the programme. Hopefully we will get him nailed down, but of course they have very, very busy schedules. Catherine in Cardiff says how different the country might be today if only David Davis had not been usurped at the 11th hour by David Cameron during the Conservative leadership contest back in the day. I was disgusted when the membership suddenly changed tack because of a perceived prettier face speaking without notes. How shallow, says Catherine in Cardiff. Yeah, he was the front runner, and then that speech just didn't go so well for him in 2005, and David Cameron became the leader of the Conservative Party and 5 years later Prime Minister. Let's talk about the Falklands now, because Pat in London has given me a shout. Pat, you're very welcome, and thank you for ringing me on 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say this evening?
Oh, good evening. Yeah, about the game, well, sort of the after effects of the game last night.
Yes.
Fair enough, you know, we all know that the Argentine players paraded a banner with the Malvinas and stuff. Now, a lot of people, say a lot, but some people have phoned in here tonight, so we're going to support the Spanish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, aren't they kissing cousins?
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly there are a lot of links there.
Don't they speak Spanish?
They do. And a lot of the immigration to Argentina would have been from Spain back in the day in colonial times. I suppose the point is they are separate countries. So
well, they're not really. They're not.
Well, they are. They are,
not
Pat.
separate.
Yes, they are.
They're not separate minds. They're
okay.
Basically, if there was another Argentine-British conflict, Spain would be supporting them because they're Spanish. Basically, if you go to Argentina, they speak Spanish. All right, they might have a different.
So will you be supporting neither of them on Sunday then, Pat?
Yeah, it's a game that's not even. They're not. One of them's not English, so it's not. I'll watch it.
Yep.
But I won't support either of them. I hope that Spain wins because they both speak Spanish and they're both of the same
mindset.
Ideologically.
Yeah.
And also, I've got another point that nobody has ever pointed out the British government or anybody on like the likes of yourself and other people have pointed out that Denmark, a NATO ally to Britain, sold Argentines 24 F-16 fighters. Now, although the F-16 is a 1980s fighter,
yep,
it's relatively old by comparison. They still are a formidable aircraft.
Yes.
And I can't understand why the British government never got onto the Danish government or to NATO and said, look, you're supplying
a
fellow NATO...
It's a good point. And the Israelis as well supported the Argentinians in the Falklands War. Reagan, I think, had a bit of a case to answer as well. So there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of understandable bitterness and recrimination. There'll be a lot of people who would have been deeply, deeply offended by what happened at that match last night.
Yeah, of course. But the point is, I won't support either of them because they're both Spanish and they're both of the same mind.
Okay. Pat, listen, thanks for your call. Appreciate that. That's Pat in London. Let's go to Susan in Brighton, who wants to talk about youth unemployment. Susan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, it's not very much. I was just listening to on the television. But when my daughter left college, she was quite brainy, takes after her dad, not me. And all the jobs she went out, I said, well, you're overqualified. She said, so what have I worked for, Mum? Well, she ended up doing shopping for old age pensioners. In actual fact, she quite enjoyed it. But she did eventually get a job. The chap that ran Legal and General, he gave her a job up there, so she stayed there, and she's still there, actually.
I mean, that sounds like a good job at Legal and General, but a very important job helping those elderly people as well. Did it take her a while to get into the Legal and General job?
Pardon?
Did it take her a wee while to get into the Legal and General job?
I think she saw an advert and she applied for the job and she got it. But the first one they gave her was in suicides, and it really got to her in the end. And she said, Mum, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, she had a word with her boss and he put her onto something else, onto another section up there. But no, she really enjoyed it. I mean, I think she helps my son-in-law now because he's a banker, so I don't get into that because I don't understand it.
Well, often the jobs you don't understand can be the most lucrative, Susan, I find. Do you ever have that, though, where you talk to someone and you've asked them maybe 4 or 5 times to explain their job to you, and you still don't understand it and you don't really remember either? Because I have that with a load of my friends.
Oh, no, I understand all the jobs I've done.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
What have you done, Susan?
What have I done? Right, I worked for the author, Peter... Oh, what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Isn't it awful? Well, I worked for his mum anyway, because at the glove factory making gloves. And I enjoyed, because I went into needlework. And then I went into making leather handbags.
Great.
All leather goods,
Yeah.
all in Brighton. And I really enjoyed that.
Are you still working now, Susan?
Well, actually, I'm past working age, but my mum went into a nursing home, and that had to be paid for, so I went back to work because I had a few health issues. But anyway, yeah, I went back to work, and I actually work with old people now.
Oh, right, okay.
And I actually quite enjoy it. I've only got 2 now,
Yes.
but no, I do enjoy it.
Are you are you helping them like a carer or a home help, or?
Oh, no, well, it's a jack of all trades and master of none, I think.
Right, okay.
It's mostly cleaning, and today the one I went to, he's got a fish pond, so with all this hot weather, so I put the hose pipe on and kept that topped up.
That's a good idea, yeah. Susan, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, I can honestly say, you know, I had a great aunt, and she had, she's sadly no longer with us, but she had someone like you who came in and helped her on so many different things, shopping and helping her with caring needs and all sorts of things, and she really relied on that person, and it was just lovely to have someone coming in, you know, a couple of times a day and chatting to her and staying with her, and even just watching television with her on some occasions. And it really, I mean, I'm over here in England, and a lot of her family weren't too particularly close geographically, and just to know there's someone there like that's a really, really important job.
Well, I think probably because I was brought up with my grandparents anyway. My mum was there, but I was brought up with my grandparents on a farm, and I I've always enjoyed helping people.
Yeah.
And
do you think young people have it tougher these days, Susan?
Youngsters, yeah, I think they do, yeah, definitely. I wouldn't want to be a youngster now, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
As my mate said to me, so I'm glad I'm at my time of life now. I said, yeah, so am I, because the way the world's going, it's not a very nice place at times.
And how's your mum?
My mum passed away in 2019, unfortunately. She had dementia, bless her heart.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's very tough.
She was in a nursing home for 10 years, but I went over there every day, and my husband was on the cab, so when I wasn't there, he went there, because I used to go to work and then go over the home to my mum.
Yeah.
And I sort of done her room out with all her own furniture, and I still showered her and done everything for her, and bought all her clothes and that, and done all that. So, yeah, it was... but actually, the day she died, I was with her, because I said... Oh, hang on a minute. Yes, I'm on the phone, sorry.
Not to worry, Susan. Finish what you're saying.
So I was over there, and I said, Jim, you know, whatever time, day or night, you think Mum's going to go, call me.
Yes.
So I had my own car then, so I could get a phone call about 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I'd be on the old bypass moving over to the home, and they actually pulled through that. But it was a Saturday when she passed away, and I went in, and I don't know if you know it, but when they're passing away, the veins in their legs, you could see the oxygen leaving.
Right.
And I looked at it, and I said to Camille, one nurse, I said, Mum's going now. He said, yeah, I'm afraid she is. So I patted her face. I said, it's only... Look, I said, I'm going to give you a kiss now. I said, but Nanny and Granddad are waiting for you and your brothers.
Oh, that's a lovely thing to say.
You know, I said, look, the sun's shining, it's a nice day. I said, you can go. I'm a big girl now, and I can take care of myself. And we've actually just went.
That's about, I mean, horrible as those things are, that sounds about as nice as it could have been. You held her hand, and you helped her, and you gave her reassurance in those moments.
Yeah. I mean, I still miss her even now, after all that time.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm doing gardening, because my mum was the first lady gardener in Brighton and Hove. She worked for Preston Park.
Right, okay.
She's done all the competition beds in the summer months coming into Brighton.
Well, good for her. And Susan, even though it's been a few years since your mum died, you're still helping older people, you're still working away?
Actually, I enjoy it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, because one of them I go to, I've been with her since 2008. I go in there sometimes, and she said to me, she said to me, you can piss off. I said, listen here, I said, I'll give you a clip on the ear in a minute. And her son phoned me up when I got home. He said, I've got Mum here. And I said, what's the matter, Chris? You all right? She said, yeah. She said, Stephen's made me phone him up to apologise.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, clearly you have a good relationship with him, Susan.
Yeah, I have. And, yeah, she's a lovely lady, bless her heart. She's losing her sight now, so...
Well, I tell you something, if I was in the situation, thankfully both my parents are very well, and they're doing well, but someone like you would be great to look after them if things were a bit different. But listen, Susan, thanks for your call. I covered a lot of ground in that, and I hope you have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye, Susan. Really interesting call there from Susan. If you want to get on the air to talk about whatever she has mentioned or whatever you want to talk about, maybe she struck a chord, let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk to Dominic Dyer in just a second, the animal welfare campaigner, because the Dartmoor ponies are saved, which is great news. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Peter's been in touch with a message saying it's disgusting that City Can is getting a peerage. Is there a way it can be blocked? I don't think it is, Peter. I don't think there is a way it can be blocked, to be brutally honest. I'm going to tell you a really horrible story now, and it is just grim. I know it's 9:30 in the evening, but if you've children nearby, maybe they're off school or something like that, please just be aware this is disturbing content. It certainly disturbed me. It's about a postman killing a partially blind dog after kicking the animal like a football. The Royal Mail delivery driver kicked the Shih Tzu, Ethel, in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire at around 11 o'clock on Saturday, causing the pet to suffer organ failure. The Ring doorbell footage, which has been obtained by The Sun, showed him kicking the pet, which rolled to the ground. The driver has reportedly been suspended by Royal Mail, and causing unnecessary suffering to an animal is a criminal offence and can carry a sentence of up to 5 years in prison or an unlimited fine. I certainly hope to throw the book at him. It is absolutely dreadful. Eve Lewis, who's the dog's owner, a 40-year-old NHS worker, said her dog was partially blind and had one tooth. He didn't even just kick her, he toe-punted her like she was a football. She flew up in the air and hit the ground and rolled 3 times. She went flying. The thing is, the driver was walking away and still made the effort to turn around and kick her. I just don't want this to happen to anyone else. I'm heartbroken and angry. I've gone through about 100 packets of tissues. She concluded the dog Vets concluded the dog had suffered organ failure caused by blunt force trauma, and there was going to be irreversible brain damage, so Eve made the heartbreaking decision to put the dog down to be caring towards it. Her blood pressure dropped and they put tubes up her nose. They said there's internal bleeding. I went home overnight. When I came back to the vets in the morning, she was pretty much already out of it. Royal Mail said, we're deeply sorry for this distressing incident. We know how upsetting it is for the family. We're treating this matter very seriously. We've seen the footage and launched a full investigation to establish the circumstances. We've also confirmed to the family that we will cover the veterinary costs. Let's speak in a minute about a much better story about the Dartmoor ponies, but on this really horrible story about the postman kicking a blind dog to death. Dominic Dyer is with me, the animal welfare campaigner. Dominic, this is dreadful. Totally unnecessary cruelty. Dreadful.
It is, yes. You know, it's fair to say that at times, you know, it's difficult being a postman or a postwoman. There are difficulties they face with dogs, and, you know, many of them do face injuries as a result because owners aren't being responsible when people are coming to the house. But in this instance, there seems no justification of the action that's been taken by this particular post driver. It seems inherently cruel. From what we understand, you know, that dog was no threat to anyone, and clearly what he's done is put it in such a situation of great cruelty and harm that they had no alternative but to put it to sleep. So I hope that the Royal Mail will take that very seriously. I know they suspended him. There's huge public anger over it. That's just not acceptable behaviour at all. It's absolutely disgraceful.
What should happen to the driver? How likely is it that there will be a criminal sanction if he's found guilty of this?
Well, if it's been filmed, if there's good evidence, a case could be brought against him. The RSPCA, for example, could take a case, and I would have thought that the postal authorities would support that and would be at fault if they didn't. If it was clearly animal cruelty, if it was clearly a vicious attack that was in no way justified, there was no threat to that individual, I think that's the only route that you can go down. I think that the law will have to take its course.
On a horrible story, and our thoughts are with Eve Lewis and her family this evening. It's just a dreadful thing. On a brighter note, the Dartmoor ponies have been saved after Natural England has U-turned on its cull. Tell us about this, Dominic. We've spoken about this before, but now there's a scheme. They backed down on the scheme that had put them at the risk of culling. The semi-wild ponies responsible of the area's commoners, farmers whose animals lived on the moorland. They've roamed Dartmoor for more than 3,500 years, but their future was put in peril previously. Just talk us through this, Dominic, and from where we've been to where we are now.
Yeah, it's interesting, wasn't it? We talked about this a few weeks ago when it was an emerging story.
Yeah.
The Dartmoor Hill Pony Association, all credit to them, as a local community group, had raised fears that Natural England were putting in place a policy that was going to force landowners and farmers to give up more ponies, and they would be culled potentially and go into the food chain. We'd seen this go on over years gone by, and we could lose 9 out of 10 of what was left of Dartmoor's ponies. If you look at the numbers, they'd astronomically come down anyway. There were 4,500 probably, 6,000 or thereabouts in 2000. By 2025, less than 1,000. The problem here was that Natural England wasn't being clear about what its intentions were. To be fair, when I was talking with you about this and going out publicly about this, I was getting quite a lot of pushback, including from some conservationists and others who said you're being unfair on Natural England. They're not trying to force farmers and landowners to give up these ponies. But that's exactly what they were doing, because basically they were putting the ponies in the same category as livestock. They were then saying they wanted to see a 75% reduction in overall grazing for both livestock and ponies on Dartmoor to protect biodiversity and wildlife. And that meant that the landowners and farmers would have to prioritise the livestock, which generates their income, and give up the ponies. So effectively, they went ahead with that policy. It would have meant a significant cull of the ponies that were left. And they kept stonewalling and putting out messages saying that's not what we're trying to do here. It's completely misleading. But, Kemi Badenoch got onto this as the Conservative Party leader, and actually then Labour MPs got behind this, Liberal Democrat MPs got behind this, and there was a huge public and political outcry. So what I'm pleased to see is that the DEFRA Secretary yesterday came out and said in the closing days of the Starmer administration, of course, that actually they will exclude Dartmoor ponies from the stocking density requirements. But not only, they're going to produce more additional public funding, financial support for the landowners and farmers to ensure they can actually keep those ponies grazing, and they can do so in a way that protects them into the future. I think this is a significant victory for people who care deeply about the future of ponies, and also about Dartmoor itself and our, the history and the culture and the environment, which are all integrally important to that part of the world, and the pony is most definitely a part of that.
Well, that is a good news story and a good end to what should never have happened in the first place. Dominic, thank you as always, and thanks for your campaigning on that particular issue, as well as all the others, that you're indefatigable on animal welfare. That's Dominic Dyer there, the animal welfare campaigner. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. One person on Twitter says, it's lovely to hear the voice of Pat in London. Britain is close to losing that accent, and once it disappears, it won't come back. On Gavin Barwell, Guy George says Barwell has been very detrimental to the Conservative Party for a number of years. Now, is he a Lib Dem plant? Who cares? But well done, Kemi Badenoch, for removing the barnacles. Thank you also to Nat, who's listening in Tel Aviv, who is talking about the postman who kicked the dog. The scumbag should go to prison, says Nat. I totally agree with you. And the footage is there, and hopefully this will be open and shut, and there will be a very severe criminal sanction when it comes to that. And she also makes a really, really good point about people's jobs. And I don't know about you, but I have a number of people in my life who I've sort of explained the job to, or they've explained their job to me, I should say, and I just don't know what it is. And still, and you get to the sort of fourth or fifth time, and you just think, I still don't understand what your job is. It's only going to get worse with AI, I think. Nat says, remember the girls losing the apartment in Friends over Chandler's job question, and that was a brilliant. It's one of my favourite favourite episodes of Friends, actually. It's really, really good. One day, Ross has the quiz to see who wins the apartment. $100. And the final question is, what is Chandler Bing's job? And Rachel says, transponster. And then Monica just says, that's not even a word. Ken from Wookie Hole in Somerset, is that a real place? Wookie Hole, can we check that? In Somerset, says, I've always liked you and your very sensible and informed views. Thank you, Ken. Last night you said before your GCSEs you were reading John Major's autobiography late at night. It made me laugh and like you even more. That's very kind, Ken. Thank you. Do you know what? There is a little bit more to that story. I was talking about how geeky I was as a then, I think, 16-year-old, however old I was at that stage. And my English language exam was the next day. And you could sort of gen up with the skills, but it was essentially, you got a question which was, you know, a sort of, is something a good idea or a bad idea? And you had to do what was called a discursive essay and look at things from different points. And interestingly, by complete and sheer coincidence, I was reading John Major's autobiography, which I later got signed by John Major. But the chapter I was reading, which my dad said, you know, put the book away because it's late at night and your exams tomorrow morning. The chapter was about him setting up the National Lottery. John Major was the Prime Minister when the National Lottery was set up. And the unseen paper the next day, there was nothing that I could really, subject-wise, predict. I promise you, by a complete coincidence, the question was, do you believe the National Lottery is a good or bad thing? And I did pretty well in the exam, and I was very glad too, as well. So that was just another element of that very geeky story. John Major's autobiography, aged 15. Get a life, Peter. Well, it's served me well so far, because here I am. Lots to come. We'll speak to callers in the next section. We'll also have a chat with Ash to see what's coming on his programme with Andre after 10 o'clock. Mary and Mark are standing by. There may well be some other callers as well. If you want to get your voice on the air between now and 10, you can give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election.
Count Binface apparently is now 5-1. Brilliant. You know, so look, I mean, you know, if I were being flippant, I'd say Count Binface's campaign is now well and truly up and running, and Reform are struggling to put a lid on it.
Let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Alex in Cardiff, who says, what a terrible story about that dog kicked to death. 5 years isn't enough for kicking a dog to death. 5 years and a massive fine I pray for, but it won't bring a member of the family back after being put down. A terribly sad story, says Alex in Cardiff. Totally agree with you, Alex, and thank you for that. Wickyhole is a place. Ray has been in touch to say Wickyhole is where Cheddar Caves are in Somerset. I was in Cornwall recently, and I need to get to know the southwest of England a bit better. I've been around the country a lot, especially when I worked on Question Time. I would go to a different place every week, and my English geography is getting a tiny bit better, but still not much better. It needs to be a lot better, even though I've lived in England for about 20 years. But anyway, there we are. Let's speak to Mark in Lincolnshire. He wants to talk about the Falklands. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. How are you doing?
Hi there, Peter.
Hi there.
Hi there. Yeah, not so bad. A little bit dizzy at the minute, but, you know, whatever.
There's a busy news agenda too, especially with this Falklands story. What do you make of it?
Yeah, the Falklands thing. Yeah, I think come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, really. I mean, that's the general message. I've noticed a lot on social media, you know, very negative stuff. Because we've just been conditioned into thinking that the entire country, our entire military, everything else, is completely useless and incapable of anything. But the reality is, if we needed to go there and actually kick them out again, we are more than capable of doing that. We still have carrier task groups anyway, which is all you technically need. A couple of warships to escort cruise liners that, exactly the same as in 1982, we would requisition, you know, private cruise liners to transport the troops. You know, again, back in 82, we used less than 10,000 ground troops. Mm-hmm. We still have over 60,000 in the army.
Yeah.
So
you don't seriously think another invasion is likely, do you?
I don't think so. Not if Argentina have got any sense. I think it just wouldn't be worth it for them, to be honest. Because if you think our military's bad, you know, theirs is pretty terrible, shall we say. Yeah, so I think it's all a bit of a hoo-ha over nothing.
Yeah.
To be honest.
What do you think was running through the minds of those players last night? Were they just, were they just in a state of ecstasy about winning? Do you think they really understood how deeply offensive them holding up that sign, that banner would have been? Because they really should be sanctioned in some way. It is horrendous and deeply distasteful to the hundreds of soldiers who gave their lives for the Islanders' freedom.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly should be sanctioned. Obviously, political messages are against the rules, aren't they? So, you know, I think they were just doing what the fans would want them to do, if you know what I mean. Stupid, act of stupidity, really, on the players' front. But then again, you know, at the end of the day, there's no love lost, is there? So,
yeah. Who will you be supporting on Sunday?
Well, neither really. Mm-hmm. Probably, if I'm going to end up watching it, probably Spain, I guess. Certainly don't fancy supporting the Argies. So
yeah, no, I think a lot of people will feel the same way. Mark, thank you for your call. I appreciate that. That's Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's go to Mary in Hemel Hempstead. Who has some thoughts on Keir Starmer. Mary, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, I wish I'd been in Parliament and I would have been on my feet and I would have been cheering and clapping and applauding when hearing this man's delusional speech. Because I would be cheering because he's going, and he's.
I think that's why a lot of those MPs were cheering, Mary, don't you?
And he thinks that they were applauding him, but
yeah,
they were cheering because he was going.
Happy to see him going. Will you be applauding Andy Burnham tomorrow when he makes his first speech as leader of the Labour Party?
I'm afraid I've got no interest in him whatsoever. You know the real business with the Argentina thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, didn't the Spanish invade Argentina? So are they going to leave Argentina and give it back to the Incas or the Mayas or whatever?
Depends how far you go back, I suppose. I did think it was pretty disgraceful what happened last night. And what do you think should happen now, Mary?
I don't know. I don't watch football. I'm not involved in it really. I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. I think if they're going to behave like children, they're best ignored.
OK, thanks for your thoughts, Mary. Appreciate you getting in touch from Hemel Hempstead. Marie in Barry is there. Is that Barry in Wales, Marie?
It is in South Wales, in the Vale of Glamorgan.
Lovely, excellent. What is on your mind this evening, Marie?
I found in much earlier when we were talking about the football.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of football whatsoever.
And presumably not a supporter of England.
I am this week.
Yes, okay.
And for a number of weeks because of the flag flying, etc.
Yes.
I am a big rugby fan.
Okay.
What I wanted to say was, with the football that has gone on, like last night, etc.
Yeah.
With Argentina, it's quite, it's horrible.
Yes.
We've seen that. The Malvinas thing, the players put out.
Yes, really disgraceful, isn't it? Especially when you think of the 255 soldiers who died in 1982 fighting for the Falkland Islanders' freedom. 3 Falkland Islanders as well died in that.
Simon Weston is a Welshman, as am I. But it's like sport is supposed to be non-political.
Yes, yes.
And I agree with some of the people who have said those players who play for English clubs get played. It's just, but I do think if FIFA or the world people who were to look at this, those players will say, we didn't know that banner came from the crowd. And
but they chose to hold it up, Maria. Well, they didn't have to. They didn't have to.
I agree. They didn't have to.
Yes.
I think they will use it as an excuse. And I would just like to say the rugby is being played on the weekend, and I just don't think you see that kind of behaviour. You look at the when Morocco played France, we had there was stuff going on in London with the Morocco. We weren't even playing them.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there were some disgraceful scenes there as well. Marie, really good thoughts from you. Really great call. Thank you very much indeed. I wish you well in Barry, and do give me another ring on another occasion. We'll talk to Ash in just a second. He is going to be on between 10 and 1, him and Andre Walker together, of course. Thank you to the texter. He says that the Argentine players should be sanctioned. They should lose their place in the final and give that place to a losing opponent, in this case England. Funny you should suggest that. Thank you for that. Joyce says, if you do not understand what someone's job is, it's probably a menial job spruced up with a fancy title. There are definitely a few of those around as well. And Stephen's message as well says, if the dog was half blind with one tooth, it was likely old and frail. 5 years in prison is way too much, especially considering the demand in prison places. Stephen, I'm sorry, you're absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. If someone kicks a dog to death, I want them the book to be thrown at them. Quite frankly, I'm not sure 5 years is enough, Stephen. So I'm sorry. I just thank you for your message. I appreciate it, but I totally disagree with you. Ash is here. Hello, sir.
All right, Bubba. How you doing, man? Has it been a good show?
It has been a good. You're doing your makeup. You're beautifying yourself.
Starmer, what a ridiculous fool going on. I've made it a better country. You know, delusional. All those people blubbering in the chamber. It's embarrassing, isn't it? It's cringe. I mean,
well, they're very happy he's going anyway. That's why they're happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Burnham tomorrow, of course. He will outline how he's going to fix the country. Everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's going to be amazing, of course. Sadiq Khan, that's one of the new peers, isn't it? That's why he's leaving us. Like, you know, this is like when Trump gives pardons out. He gives out peers. Because he was Sir Sadiq Khan. He didn't last long as that. Now he's going to be Lord. You don't get Lord Sir, do you? You lose the Sir.
Yeah, well, it's technically there. You just don't use it. So he'll be Lord Khan.
Lord's better than Sir.
Yes.
But why, you know, the internet inventor... Berners-Lee. He's only
Tim
Sir.
Berners-Lee.
He's only Sir.
Yeah. Do you know what? I know someone who was on a Zoom call with Tim Berners-Lee, and they had to say to him, Tim, you're on mute. at one stage. So
well,
the
yeah.
inventor...
Ever since the internet, he's gone, "Oh, forget it.
Well,
I've done enough for my life in computers. I'll just stick at that." But they give Lord Sugar one just for inventing the Amstrad computer and that stereo. But Berners-Lee invents the internet.
Well, he didn't invent the internet. He invented the World Wide Web.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Texted.
Why do people still go www? It's stupid. Stop going www. Man.
You're angry.
Yeah, well, so anyway, we've got Pete Barnes in. Imam calls women wild animals after government fails to ban him from UK. Well, I don't know what the controversy... No, I'm joking. Israel believed to have recruited former